Chapter 126. It has been a month since Hal and his companions returned to the guild. The residents of Magnolia were also happy to welcome their return. During this period, Mingju also sent a warship to pick him up. Unfortunately, Hal was completely unmoved, and he was already immersed in the gentle countryside. Isn't it for the present that I have been struggling for 7 years? Hal thought while enjoying the hot springs on the 4th floor of the guild. He has made sufficient preparations for the future, and all plans are being carried out in an orderly manner. As for the so-called god Angsarum, he has long disappeared in Hal's world like a shadow that has not spoken for a long time. In the past 7 years, he has never felt that annoying sense of oppression again. Maybe it was because he was afraid that Hal would die when he encountered the Black Dragon, or maybe it was because of something else. In short, Hal will enjoy these 3 months of peace. Makarov downstairs has no more back pain, leg pain, and heart pain since his magic power has become stronger. He is now riding Hal's battleship to show off to old friends all over Fiori. He also brought Polika with him. To be honest, if Makarov hadn't brought it up, Hal would have forgotten about this old man. In order to make their journey smoother, Hal used the life magic of his right hand to provide Polika with some vitality, and she became much younger. Sure enough, pink hair is the best. Ahem, no. Speaking of pink hair, Melty has gradually grown up in the past few years, and no longer always sticks to Hal and acts like a spoiled child like when she was a child. Now she spends more time with Brother Cat, and only recently followed Hal. Hal occasionally saw her frowning look, and he couldn't help but feel a little distressed. After all, he watched her grow up little by little, and this miserable girl was like his family. Mingju's work is also progressing steadily. In the past 3 years, she has continued to infiltrate Albaraz and spy on the other party's every move. So far, there has been no unusual movement in Albaraz, which makes Hal feel relieved. At least for the time being, there will be no incidents that deviate from the plot. However, Hal's vigilance has not been completely eliminated. Because 6 years ago, Albaraz sent hundreds of warships to attack Ishgar. Although they eventually retreated, Hal still couldn't guess the reason. Perhaps it was Ziref's order, or perhaps it was for other reasons. This uncertainty made Hal feel nervous. The plot has begun to deviate too much. Hal looked up at the starry sky, feeling a lot of emotions in his heart. Although he knew some of the future, everything now gradually exceeded his expectations. The road ahead seemed no longer so clear, and he could only move forward cautiously and step by step. On this day, King Fiori came to visit Hal. As a permanent neutral country, Hal did not force Fiori to belong to his rule. But the old king seemed to see it very clearly. He had sent an envoy to decide to submit to Hal a long time ago. This also made Hal and him still have a good relationship. The 4th floor of the guild is a huge hot spring floor. Hal usually eats grapes and plays in the lounge of the hot spring floor, cough cough. However, today's occasion is different from usual. Hal tidied his clothes slightly and put on the black imperial clothes that symbolized majesty. The fabric shone with a deep luster under the light. The obsidian imperial crown on his forehead shone on his head, looking solemn and mysterious. He was ready to accept the visit of King Fiori. Not long after, an old man about 1.2 meters tall walked up the stairs slowly under the guidance of the black armor knight. His hair was silver white and his face was deeply wrinkled, but his eyes were still bright. Beside him, stood a woman who attracted people's attention. Her hair was as green as emerald, hanging on her shoulders, shining with a faint luster. She was wearing a long white dress with exquisite patterns embroidered on the hem, and the light fabric swayed slightly with her steps. She wore a red crystal headdress, which set off her noble temperament. The red and emerald colors complemented each other and looked particularly dazzling. The woman's eyes were gentle and firm, as if she had the dual aura of royal majesty and warmth. She was the princess of the kingdom of Fiori, Princess Emerald. The moment Emerald saw Hal, a light flashed in her eyes, and she seemed a little excited. She was about to speak, but found that Thomas had already saluted Hal respectfully. "Hello, Emperor Ishgar. I was very frightened when we parted 7 years ago. It is a great honor to see you again today." Thomas's tone was full of respect and a hint of complex emotions. Emerald also leaned down quickly, revealing her full chest and elegant posture. With a gentle smile on her face, she said affectionately and solemnly, "Emerald greets the Emperor." Hal smiled and waved his hand, "No problem, don't be so reserved, we are old acquaintances." "What's going on today?" Hal asked, his voice could not tell whether he was happy or angry. Thomas stood up straight and cleared his throat slightly. It's like this, Your Majesty, I heard that everyone in Fairy Tale is back. Yes, it's been 7 years, it's really been a long time. Hal nodded, with a hint of nostalgia in his tone. That's great, Your Majesty, I'm going to hold a continent-wide Magician Guild martial arts performance in 2 months, the Grand Magician Martial Arts. I beg Fairy Tale to participate. Thomas's voice was a little anxious, and it was obvious that he hoped to do something through this event. At this time, Fiore was still playing the role of a permanent neutral country under Hal's rule in Ishgar. As for the fact that Thomas had surrendered to Hal a long time ago, the world did not know. Thomas's trip to hold the Grand Demonic Martial Arts was fake, and his real purpose was to make friends with Hal and Fairy Tale. He now urgently needed to restore the dignity of the royal family for Fiore. Of course, Hal didn't want it either. However, Thomas naturally didn't think of this. For him, it would be a fantasy that Hal, as the Emperor of Ishgar, would not wipe out these weak kingdoms. Hal saw Thomas's little thoughts, but didn't point it out. He just chuckled, but... Thank you, Your Majesty, then please look forward to the Grand Demonic Martial Arts in 2 months. Okay, but I don't want you to give any preferential treatment to our guild. Just distribute it fairly, so that I don't have to be an eyesore. Yes, Your Majesty, I'll take my leave. Thomas breathed a sigh of relief and quickly bowed and took his leave. The jade behind him was a little moved. Your Majesty Hal, I wonder if I can chat with you. I admire your magic very much. How can I reach your level? Seeing this, Thomas looked at Hal's eyes with some worry. However, the guards behind him had already led him away at Hal's signal. Hal looked at Thomas's gradually disappearing figure, and then turned his eyes to Emerald. With a chuckle, he motioned Emerald to sit down, and asked the guards to put a gorgeous chair in front of her. Sit down and chat. By chance, I am also very interested in you. Hal's smile was playful, but his eyes were deep and elusive. Thank you, Emperor. Princess Emerald sat down excitedly, and her face unconsciously revealed the joy of a little girl. Excuse me, Your Majesty, what should I do to learn the terrifying magic attainments like you? I have watched your magic miracles and I admire you very much. Hal looked at Jadeite, his tone became soft and slightly mysterious. My magic is innate, I am afraid you will be disappointed. If you have time, you can ask President Makarov, he is the real master. Ah, Your Majesty, you are really talented, Jadeite knows. Jadeite's tone was full of admiration, but her expression was a little stiff. She knew that this was the performance of the man in front of her keeping a distance. Hal adjusted his sitting posture slightly, and gently placed his hands on his knees, showing the elegance and calmness of the Emperor. He leaned forward slightly, but his eyes were deeply locked on Jadeite's face, as if he could see through every subtle fluctuation in her heart. I know what you want to talk about. Hal's voice was soft but with a hint of majesty. Then his tone changed and became low, as if the voice came from the abyss, and only Jadeite could hear it. Let's talk about the solar eclipse, okay? At that moment, Emerald's heartbeat suddenly accelerated, and she met Hal's calm pupils. Hal's eyes were cold and deep, as if he saw through everything. Emerald's heart was instantly filled with panic and fear. Your Majesty! How did you know? Emerald stuttered, with deep uneasiness and shock in her tone. Hal gently raised one hand and gently stroked Emerald's smooth chin, staring at Emerald with eyes like the abyss. Your plan can't be hidden from me. Chapter 127. Hal stared coldly at the somewhat panicked Emerald Princess in front of him. He had already confirmed in his heart that there was no problem with the intelligence, and the plot was still advancing according to the normal timeline. However, he still had to observe the specific details carefully. He waved his hand casually, and 2 knights in black armor immediately stepped forward, and their figures appeared behind the Emerald Princess like ghosts. The black magic power quickly condensed around her, bringing a strong sense of oppression. Master Hal, The Emerald Princess voice trembled a little, obviously she didn't expect Hal to be so decisive. I will give you a chance to speak. Hal's voice was as cold as ice. He sat upright on the chair, staring at her indifferently, as if the princess in front of him was just an insignificant chess piece. As his voice fell, the 2 black knights behind him slowly drew out the magic swords in their hands, the silver light flashed, and the chill in the air became stronger. The Emerald Princess' heart tightened, she knew that the Emperor Ishgar in front of her was not joking. He didn't care about killing a princess from a so-called permanent neutral country. Hal's strength and power gave him the capital to ignore all treaties and scruples. She gritted her teeth, a trace of cold sweat on her forehead, and finally made up her mind, her voice choking. Yes, Your Majesty, this trip to invite you and Fairy Tale is for this sudden trouble. Trouble? Hal raised his eyebrows slightly, with a hint of interest in his tone. A month ago, there were two people who claimed to be from the future. They said that in 3 months, there would be 10,000 dragons attacking, warning us to be prepared. Hal's brows slightly frowned. 2 people. Yes, a man and a woman, wearing black hoods, extremely powerful, the kingdom's soldiers can't fight them at all. The voice of the Emerald Princess became lower and lower, she knew she couldn't deceive Hal. Oh? Things are getting interesting. Hal's eyes flashed with a hint of playfulness, and the corners of his lips rose slightly. He didn't expect that the original plot of the Eclipse Gate would actually cause new variables. This was obviously some kind of butterfly effect, and his thoughts were running fast. Hal looked at Princess Emerald, her face was full of sadness and anxiety, and there was a hint of sincerity in her watery eyes. It's true, Your Majesty, I don't know how to deal with it. I'm still hesitating whether to believe them. Princess Emerald said softly, obviously struggling in her heart. Hal chuckled and waved to the knights behind him to retreat. The Black Knights quickly sheathed their swords without hesitation and respectfully left the room, leaving Princess Emerald sitting on the ground. Little Emerald, I believe you. Hal's voice was low, with a hint of imperceptible joy. Thank you, Your Majesty. Princess Emerald was grateful, her hands trembling as she supported the ground, as if she had just been saved from the gates of hell. Next, I need you to do something for me. Hal narrowed his eyes slightly, and his tone was still cold. What is it, Your Majesty? Princess Emerald asked cautiously, fearing to anger the unpredictable Emperor again. Go back, pretend to believe them, and cooperate with their plan. Hal said lightly. Hey! Princess Emerald was unable to react for a moment, and looked up at Hal in shock. However, Hal's expression remained calm, and his expressionless face seemed to see through everything. Okay, go down. I will contact you later. Remember, do your job well, I will not touch the Fiori royal family. Hal waved his hand indifferently, as if this decision was just an ordinary thing. Yes. Your Majesty. Princess Emerald was full of doubts, but she did not dare to say more. She said goodbye softly and slowly left the room. As her figure disappeared, Hal was the only one left in the room. A very rare smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and his right hand unconsciously exuded black magic, and the whole room seemed to be shrouded in this dead atmosphere. Hee hee. 10,000 dragons. Hal whispered, his eyes flashing with excitement, I don't know if I can kill them all now. He looked at his palm wrapped in black magic, and recalled the scene when he succeeded and easily killed Gamma and other rebels. At that time, he realized that he had an extremely terrifying ability. He seemed to be able to absorb the vitality of others and become stronger. However, the vitality of ordinary people and ordinary wizards is too weak to bring much improvement. Hal guessed that this might be closely related to magic. After all, in this world, magic is the embodiment of vitality. But what about dragons? If you can absorb the vitality of a dragon. Hal's mouth curled up again, as if he saw an exciting future. Chapter 128. Only a few people knew about the arrival of Princess Emerald and King Fiori. For everyone in Fairy Tale, every day is full of novelty. 7 years is enough to make the familiar world a little strange. Fortunately, however, everything seems to be moving in a good direction. On this day, the atmosphere of the guild was still noisy, as if nothing had changed. Makarov had just returned to the guild today. He was a little tired after showing off for several days, so he went to sleep in the innermost room on the first floor of the guild. Natsu and Gray, as always, quarreled in the hall, and the sound of the quarrel drowned out the surrounding noise. Stinky underwear man, what did you just say? Natsu's eyes widened instantly, and his fist almost hit Gray's face. Hey? How many times have I said it? Don't disturb me drinking, did you hear me clearly, stinky flame? Gray sneered, raised his glass while provoking, and his tone was full of sarcasm. The two confronted each other with their foreheads against each other, and the smell of gunpowder was strong. Natsu's fist trembled slightly, and Gray's cold breath spread in the air. Lucy and Juvia behind him had already stood aside helplessly, looking at each other, sighing and reaching out to hold their arms. Nothing seems to have changed. Lucy smiled, but a trace of nostalgia flashed across her eyes. Well, Mr. Natsu and Grey-sama, really? Juvia murmured in a low voice, with a shy smile on her face. In the guild, noise and laughter intertwined, and the liveliness made people feel warm in their hearts. At this time, in the small room on the 4th floor of the guild, an indescribable scene was quietly unfolding. Ah! This is the fun of life. Gildarts sighed in his heart. Gildarts, the man who was extremely majestic in the eyes of outsiders, was enjoying a rare peaceful time. This was the big sister reward given to him by Hal. You know, Hal now doesn't want this uncle to wander around with beautiful photos every day. The best arrangement is to stay in the guild and enjoy a moment of peace. However, the good times did not last long. A few days later, Kana appeared outside Hal's door with an unhappy look on her face. Knock. Knock. Kana knocked on the door. Open the door. Is anyone there? No response. She frowned, and when she was about to shout, she felt a strong magical breath. At this time, the atmosphere in the room was very subtle. Hal covered his eyes, and Myra chuckled. Ah! Myra's voice was soft, as if with a hint of mischief. Myra blinked cunningly, with a mysterious smile, hee, I won't tell you. Just when the two were having fun, Hal suddenly frowned vigilantly, keenly sensing the movement outside the door. Wife! There seems to be someone outside, otherwise don't. Myra snorted coquettishly and said angrily, who will come? I have set up a silent magic circle, and people outside can't hear it at all. Hal was still a little worried, but before he could continue to refute, he was gasped by Myra's superb skills and his words were held back. At the same time, Kana outside the door had been knocking for a long time, and her anger value was rising steadily. As an old acquaintance of Hal, she didn't hesitate at all, violently pried the door open, and walked straight in. Ah! Hal's satisfied voice sounded. Ah! Myra's satisfied voice also sounded at the same time. Kana stood at the door, petrified for a moment, as if time had frozen. Ah! Kana's voice was trembling, and she looked at everything in front of her with a blushing face. There seemed to be a strange awkward atmosphere in the air. She was stunned for a second, her face flushed, and she turned and ran out, mumbling incoherently. I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. Obviously, even the mature Kana was severely shocked by the scene. This also led to him not daring to complain to Hal that day. Hal saw Kana's dodging eyes the next day. What's wrong, Kana? What did you want to talk to me about yesterday? Kana touched her face awkwardly, but still said, Gildarts was really. Did you see it? I didn't. I just saw his rotten, refreshing, expression after each session. After hearing this, Hal's face froze slightly, patted Kana's shoulder, and then waved his hand, inviting Gildarts out mercilessly. Okay, Gildarts, you should go out and do the task. Don't worry, the great magic director will come back. Well, it doesn't matter whether he comes back or not. Hal shrugged indifferently. A few days later, outside Magnolia City, a middle-aged man with helplessness and grievance on his face, embarked on a journey alone. The wind around him seemed to be a little sad, sighing for his fate. Time went back, in the guild hall, the quarrel between Natsu and Grey was getting more and more intense. Stinky ice, watch me burn you! Natsu roared, the flames wrapped around his body raging like a beast, the hot flames dancing wildly, as if to burn everything. Stinky flame! You kid is drunk before you even drink! Grey counterattacked coldly, the ice-blue cold air gradually permeated his body, the temperature around him dropped sharply, and the air seemed to solidify into frost. The momentum of the two instantly rose, and they did not give in. At this moment, their fists collided in mid-air. Boom! The violent explosion sounded throughout the hall, and the huge shock wave swept across, shaking the ground with a dull humming sound. The flames and the cold air intertwined, the energy frenzy roared like a giant beast, and the shock wave instantly tore the walls and tables and chairs in the hall. The entire guild hall exploded in an instant. The defensive magic circle was immediately activated, and countless golden lightsabers fell from the sky and hovered in the air, as if controlled by some force, automatically looking for the enemy's traces. However, the lightsaber scanned the air for a long time, but found nothing. The smoke and dust in the sky had not yet dissipated, and the guild hall was like a ruin. The guild members lay on the ground in a mess, full of confusion and anger. Just when everyone wanted to reprimand Gray and Natsu for their misbehavior. With a roar, Marcus struggled to climb out of the collapsed tables and chairs. He fell to the ground with one hand, and the anger on his face seemed to burn through the air. Damn it! Are you going to destroy the guild? The dilapidated scene around him came into view, and his face instantly turned ashen. Every collapsed wall and broken floor made his anger burn. Natsu and Gray were stunned for a moment and looked at each other. No one expected that a simple fist collision would cause such terrible destructive power. The two people in the dust looked a little flustered. I have become so strong. They shouted at the same time, their voices full of disbelief. But before they finished speaking, their eyes instantly became as hot as fire, and they glared at each other again, as if their desire to fight had never diminished. Enough! Marcus's patience had completely reached its limit, and his anger erupted like a volcano. He clenched his fists, and the dark golden magic in his body surged, raging around like an invisible storm. In an instant, a set of heavy dark golden magic armor covered him. A cold breath burst out from the gaps in the armor, and the magic power was terrifying. Natsu and Gray stopped fighting almost at the same time. After feeling the pressure, they couldn't help but look over at the same time, their faces solemn. Marcus, you... Natsu and Gray looked at Marcus and tried to say something. Sand magic, sand rebellion. Marcus's roar seemed to tear the air apart. He stomped his feet hard, and the earth trembled. The ground of the guild under his feet surged like waves, and coarse sand gushed out from the ground, instantly turning into a violent sea of sand, rushing towards Gray and Natsu fiercely. The sand torrent swept across, and the powerful shock wave instantly broke the back wall of the first floor, and Natsu and Gray rushed out of the guild hall directly. The two figures drew an arc in the air, accompanied by painful shouts, and smashed into the sea behind them. Boom! A huge roar came from the sea in the distance, and the water splashed into the sky, dozens of meters high. The guild was completely silent, with only the sound of the waves still echoing. Hey! Everyone stared at this scene in a daze, their minds blank, as if they had not yet recovered from the shock just now. Makarov, who was sleeping in the room behind the lobby on the first floor. Chapter 129. The entire guild fell into a brief silence, and then burst into praise. It's worthy of being Marcus. Lakai's eyes sparkled, unable to hide her excitement. Our fairy tale's A-class wizard. Everyone shouted in unison, and the sound echoed in the guild hall. However, in contrast to the warm atmosphere, Lucy was confused. A big question mark appeared above her head. A-class wizard? What is that? She muttered subconsciously. What amazing magic power! Is this Marcus? Urza stood aside, eating strawberry cake and commenting nonchalantly, as if the commotion just now had no effect on her. At this time, Marcus put his hands in his pockets, and the wisps of sand around him swirled in the air, reflecting his extraordinary and calmness. Gray, Natsu. It's been 7 years since we last met, don't treat me as the person I was 7 years ago. His voice was steady and a bit majestic. Everyone couldn't help but marvel at his momentum, but... Ah! Finally said it, so cool. Marcus' handsome aura didn't last for 3 seconds, and suddenly jumped up excitedly. Clenched his fists, as excited as a child. Hey, hey! The guild members immediately complained. Seeing the confused expressions of Lucy, Urza, and others, Makoto stood up and explained with a smile, this is one of the changes brought by Hal. 3 years ago, Hal sent hundreds of magic knights to garrison our guild. Since then, we have been practicing under the supervision of the wizards of the Bosco Empire. That's right, this practice is 3 years. After the practice is over, Hal also announced the establishment of S-level candidates in the guild and selected A-level wizards. Walian also came out, with a bit of emotion in his tone. Yes, we have opened the second source of magic, and our strength is growing stronger. Hal also made a special magic armor for each of us. Unconsciously, Marcus, who has been promoted to A-level magicians, is now on par with Natsu and Gray. Makoto exclaimed. Marcus touched his nose proudly, and he felt happy when he heard it. But before everyone could continue to marvel, Natsu and Gray walked over from the beach with unhappy faces. Hey? As strong as me? Natsu stared at Marcus unhappily, and the flames burned on him. It's really interesting. Gray sneered, and the cold air instantly froze the ground under his feet. The atmosphere was about to explode. At this moment, Makarov walked out of the guild hall, narrowed his eyes, and had a playful smile on his lips. In this case, I, the former president, will make an announcement. How about we hold a competition? Oh! Everyone exclaimed in unison, showing excitement. The rules are very simple. Either Natsu or Gray challenges Marcus. The loser will be punished. If the winner... Makarov deliberately paused and smiled mysteriously, you can ask Hal for a set of magic devices. Wow! The three were surprised at the same time. I didn't expect to get Hal's magic device. This is exciting. Marcus' eyes lit up and clenched his fists when he heard it. After possessing the magic armor, coupled with his talent, he already has the strength close to the peak of S level. It's futile to rely on external objects. Let me teach you, Marcus. Natsu roared, and instantly turned into a ball of fire and rushed to Marcus before Gray. You bastard! Gray cursed. Sand wall. Marcus reacted quickly, and the sand formed a huge square barrier around him, layer upon layer, extremely thick. Humph, you dare to stop me with just sand? Natsu sneered, the iron fist of the fire dragon. His right hand suddenly gathered a huge flame, and the raging flame condensed into a huge 2-meter flaming fist, hitting Marcus's wall. Boom! The terrifying shock wave swept around, and the sand wall was instantly scattered by the flames. Ah! Marcus was repelled, gritted his teeth, and quickly gathered sand, intending to fight back. Sand land! The sand whistled out like a long whip, rushing straight to Natsu, and swept him into the air. Oh! Natsu was tied up by the sand, but he was not in a hurry. The flames on his body suddenly broke out, and the sand was instantly evaporated by the high temperature. It's over, Marcus! Natsu turned over, and his feet condensed with flames in the air rushed straight to Marcus. Just as the flames were about to hit Marcus, his figure suddenly twisted and turned into sand and dissipated into the air. Sand trap! Marcus sneered and manipulated the sand to create a clone. The moment Natsu shattered the clone, a large amount of sand also surrounded Natsu. Great, Marcus! Hobby shouted on the side, waving his wings excitedly. This is the S-class candidate, the A-class wizard. Lucy also looked at Marcus with shining eyes at this time. The fairy tale members around him cast admiring glances, as if they really realized Marcus's strength for the first time. Crazy! Gajiel was somewhat shocked by Marcus's strength and complained. So strong! Jovia praised softly. Laxus stood on the second floor, looking down at all this, with a faint smile on his face. It seems that these 7 years have really made everyone grow up. Makarov murmured in a low voice, with a trace of pride and relief in his eyes. However, Natsu, who was trapped in the sand, still did not stop. He clapped his palms, and the huge flames spread out like an explosion, instantly defeating Marcus's sand. Fire Dragon's Claws! Natsu got away, quickly turned around and hit, and the flames condensed under his feet hit Marcus fiercely. He was slammed directly into the ground and smashed into the floor of the guild hall, raising countless rubble. Everyone looked closely and saw that Marcus was lying in a deep pit, his back was charred and he was unconscious. Not bad, Marcus! Come again! Natsu shouted excitedly on the spot. It's over! Everyone complained helplessly. The battle between Marcus and Natsu made the core members of the guild realize that 7 years have passed and there have been really big changes. So big that their strength has changed dramatically, so big that it is hard to accept. Some people couldn't help but think in their hearts. If Hal hadn't helped them improve their strength for 7 years and returned to the guild, they would have become the lowest existence in the guild. This further stimulated everyone's determination to become stronger. While everyone was thinking, Melty came to the fairy tale guild upstairs in the guild. Her small figure quickly ran to Makarov. Grandpa Makarov, Hal asked me to tell you that we will participate in the Grand Mage Martial Arts in Ishgar in 2 months. Location, Ishgar Empire Vassal State, Fiori Kingdom, Crocus. What? Everyone looked at little Melty in shock, not knowing whether they were shocked by Hal's news or Melty's cuteness. Chapter 130. Makarov looked at the cute pink-haired girl in front of him, and then at the news in his hand, and couldn't help but be a little confused. Ishgar's Grand Mage Martial Arts? What is that? He asked in confusion. Ah, I heard from Hargo that it is a competition to evaluate the strongest wizard guild in the entire continent. This year is the first year that it is held for the entire continent. The previous ones were all held in Fiori first. Melty explained. Oh. Everyone was instantly interested when they heard about the strongest wizard guild in the continent. Isn't that great? Natsu said excitedly. Yes, it's very exciting, Urza also nodded in agreement. President, let's take a look at the rules of the competition, I'm so curious, Lucy also urged. Makarov looked at the documents in his hand and looked at the expectant expressions of everyone. Then, his face changed and he started to curse. Who is the president? The current president is Hal. Hal. You know, go find him, I want to drink well. Hal. Hearing this, everyone looked up at the guild upstairs in confusion. It is well known that Hal and Myra are a couple. It is also well known that Hal and Myra are together for almost a month. No, Grandpa, we have to prepare in advance, the title of the strongest wizard guild on the continent must be ours. Natsu said anxiously. Then what can I do? Makarov tried to spread his hands. However, Melty, who had expected everything, couldn't help but reveal a hint of cunning at the corner of her mouth. Hee, Grandpa Makarov, I forgot to tell you that Hal passed on the president's position to Guildarts in order to participate in the competition himself. Melty said mischievously. What? Makarov was so surprised that he spit out a mouthful of wine, his eyes full of shock. By the way, Guildarts seems to have just left, saying that he will be back in 2 months. Walian added on the side. Why? How can this be? Makarov scolded, his face full of anger and helplessness. So, our guild has no one in charge. Everyone was shocked. Seeing this, Melty was a little happy to lift her hair, and the fairy tale emblem on her shoulders was particularly clear. Suddenly, she came up with an idea, and her cute face looked at Makarov with expectation. President Grandpa, now you are the most senior and prestigious person in the guild. You need to help us, if we win, President Mavis will also be happy. Melty said sincerely. Looking at Melty's lovely face, Makarov's expression gradually became kind. He stood up slowly, his body was small but looked unusually tall, in that case. For fairy tale, for the first generation. For our fairy tale to become the strongest wizard guild in Ishgar, I have no choice but to do it. Oh! Long live the president! The president is so handsome! Oh! Long live the president! The president is so handsome! The guild members shouted excitedly, and praises came one after another. Seeing this, Laxus upstairs showed a relaxed smile on his face, with softness and determination in his eyes. The strongest wizard guild in Ishgar, I am looking forward to it. Golden thunder flashed around him, and Laxus's figure disappeared instantly, blending into the dazzling light. 3 days later. Lucy's home. Because Lucy hadn't returned home for 7 years, but the lease was renewed. As a result, she owed a terrible debt of 70,000 times 12 times 7. Fortunately, after reuniting with her father after 7 years, Judd paid off all the debts and even gave Lucy an extra 1 million pocket money. She used the money to buy a bigger bathtub and a lot of beautiful clothes. Therefore, Lucy's mood and life became very beautiful at this time. If there wasn't a cherry-haired man and a blue cat in the bathtub, it would be fine. Ah! You two, do you know what shame is? Lucy huddled in a corner of the bathtub, her face flushed, her arms tightly wrapped around herself, her beautiful eyes staring at Natsu and happy in front of her. Natsu was lying in the bathtub at this time, completely ignoring Lucy's protests, and sighed with satisfaction. Hey, Lucy, this bathtub is nice, I like this bathtub very much, it's so comfortable. Hey! Lucy is really rich, she actually bought such a big bathtub. Hal's family doesn't have one, I envy yours so much. Happy also agreed and raised his cat paw, diving into the water. Woo woo woo, don't do this, Lucy was so embarrassed that she wanted to dive into the water. She didn't know where to put her eyes. Almost crying. Hey, don't make such a fuss, Lucy. Urza and I often take a bath like this. Hey! Happy responded underwater. Hearing the words of the man and the cat, Lucy felt that her head was about to explode. What? What is your relationship? Seeing this, Lucy said angrily, and she didn't care about being shy. She raised her legs in the bathtub and kicked Natsu in the face. Hey! Natsu's face was rubbed by Lucy's feet, revealing an ambiguous expression. Tell me. What do you mean by taking a bath like this with Urza? Lucy's beautiful eyes stared at Natsu, jealous. Don't go too far, Lucy. Natsu smiled slightly, with a bit of a smirk. What? Lucy's pink face was unyielding, and her cute toes kept rubbing Natsu's face. Watch this. Natsu suddenly grabbed Lucy's leg and pulled her hard, causing her to lose balance and lean forward. What are you doing? Lucy's shame was instantly overflowing. Her legs were tightly held by Natsu. Wouldn't she be seen naked? Natsu took a step forward, lifted Lucy's legs, and moved closer to her. The distance between them was almost touching. Lucy's heartbeat suddenly accelerated, and Natsu's breath seemed to be hot, lingering in her ears. Natsu smiled with a hint of playfulness, and whispered, "What's wrong? Weren't you arrogant just now?" "How could I be arrogant? It was obviously you." Lucy's voice became smaller and smaller, almost inaudible. Natsu did not let go, but moved closer, watching the distance between them getting smaller and smaller, until... Ah! Lucy let out a small scream, and her whole body seemed to be electrocuted, and her face became even redder. "Natsu, something seems to have touched me." Lucy looked at Natsu pitifully with a pleading expression. Natsu smiled evilly and replied, "What? You are only allowed to rub my face with your feet, but you can't let me touch you." I don't mean that. Don't." Lucy was so ashamed that she wanted to struggle but couldn't. The temperature in the bathroom was getting higher and higher, as if the whole air had become hot, and slight waves were rolling on the water. The harpy was already floating on the water, dizzy, with its tail swaying weakly. "It's so hot, Natsu, Lucy. I'm about to faint, remember to take me out." However, the two people in the bathtub were completely immersed in each other's entanglement. The girl's low hum and the boy's eager movements intertwined in the water waves, forming an ambiguous picture. And the poor harpy had long been ignored. Chapter 131. The next morning, Happy woke up in a cold bathtub. It shivered all over, its fur became wrinkled, and it barely climbed out of the bathtub. "Hey!" In Lucy's room. At this time, Lucy was sleeping with a cute little expression on her face, holding Natsu's face, and saying meaningless words. "Natsu! Enough, I'm so tired." As she said, Lucy gently hit Natsu's head with her little pink fist. Natsu was hit and opened his eyes in confusion. He looked at Lucy, who was hugging him tightly, with a gentle smile on his lips, and buried his cherry hair deeply in the girl's softness. "Well, it's so itchy." Lucy laughed slightly in her sleep. "Stupid Lucy." Natsu responded to her with a doting voice. Natsu looked at the girl in front of him, and the happiness in his heart spread again, and he fell asleep again with a smile. That night, Happy knocked on Hare's door helplessly. "What's wrong, Happy?" Hare looked at it strangely, always feeling that it was a little strange. Happy wiped his wet hair helplessly and blew his nose constantly. "Hare! Help me, I have a cold, it's so uncomfortable." "Ah? What happened?" Myra was surprised and she gently wrapped Happy with a towel. Seeing this, Hare immediately wrapped the green magic of his right hand around Happy, and the warm magic flowed gently. "Ah! It's so comfortable. I don't want to sleep in the bathtub anymore." Happy fell asleep after saying this. Hare and Myra looked at each other, not knowing what happened at all. But looking at the sleeping Happy, Myra went to prepare dinner virtuously. From that day on, Happy left during the day and often went to Hare's house for dinner at night. Hal asked curiously what happened, but Happy only vaguely mentioned some strange words like "Natsu is so nice, Lucy is so nice, Xiaolulu," and so on. Time passed quickly, and another week passed. On this day, Hal brought Myra to the guild after a long absence, only to find that everyone was gathered together. "Hey, what's wrong, Walian?" Hal asked curiously. "This, you don't know, Natsu and Lucy are together," Walian said excitedly while eating melon. "Oh!" Hal instantly became energetic, pushed forward to push away the crowd, and saw Natsu and Lucy with a happy face. At this time, Lucy had a shy smile on her face, and she looked a little uncomfortable looking at everyone. Her cheeks were slightly flushed, and there was a bit of shyness in her eyes. "Not bad, Lucy, it's fast." Kana hugged Lucy with a smirk on her face, and Levi on the side also secretly asked Lucy. "What? Don't talk nonsense, Kana," Lucy said shyly. "What's wrong? If you like that feeling, just say it." Kana looked at her mischievously. "Then I like it very much." Lucy touched the hem of her skirt shyly. I don't know if she remembered something, her cheeks became redder. On the other side, Natsu was pressed on a stool by Urza and Gray. What are you doing, you two? Natsu said helplessly. What are you doing? When did it happen? I know you have an ambiguous relationship, but it's too fast, Gray said a little bit. Hey, what does it have to do with you? Take care of yourself, stupid Gray, Natsu said without hesitation. However, Gray had no time to quarrel with Natsu at this time. His handsome face was red for the first time in a long time, and he seemed to be thinking about something. Urza on the side had no worries at all. She grabbed Natsu's shoulder loudly and asked directly, how is it, where are you guys at, how does it feel to be in love for the first time? Ah, this. Natsu thought for a while and whispered a few words in Urza's ear. What? So fast. Urza's little face began to turn red, and her hands and feet were stiffly grasping Natsu's shoulders. Myra looked at everyone in front of her happily and hugged Hal's arm tightly. What does it feel like? Urza whispered with some embarrassment. What does it feel like? Natsu didn't react for a while, and then looked at Urza's blushing face and embarrassed expression in front of him and seemed to understand something. Oh. I forgot, Urza, you don't have any experience. Natsu looked at her with a smirk. Ah. Damn you, you stinky boy. Urza wanted to punch Natsu instantly, but then she loosened her fist. Hehe, let me tell you, it's very comfortable. Urza. Natsu said sincerely. Very comfortable. Urza no longer knew what was being said by the outside world at this moment, and this sentence kept echoing in her brain. Finally, her face became redder and redder. Then she fainted. Ah! Natsu looked at her in shock, then quickly hugged Urza's body and shook her hard. Hey, Urza, don't faint, wake up, I haven't told you the details yet. Ah, they have such a good relationship. Myra laughed at the side. Hal was full of black lines, he looked at the unconscious Urza and the shaking Natsu. It's bad, Urza can't accept the blow that Natsu is stronger than him, right? After all, she is so strong, she definitely can't accept that her brother is one step ahead of her. How? Hal looked at Natsu and Lucy again. Meow, luckily I'm faster than Natsu, otherwise I can't stand it either. Hal realized Urza's thoughts in an instant. Hey, wake up, Urza, Juvia number 2, hey. Natsu was still shaking Urza, trying to wake him up. On the side, Gray held his head in his hands, thinking about something, while Lucy's face was as red as an apple as she was questioned by Kana and Levi. Everyone in the guild also raised their ears, trying to hear more details. Hey, why do I feel that the style of painting after returning 7 years has become more and more strange? Hal stood not far away, watching all this, and couldn't help but complain. Chapter 132. Makarov sat on the first floor stand, looking at the lively crowd in the hall, looking at Natsu and Lucy with a kind look. Obviously, he also supported Natsu and Lucy being together. Finally, he glanced at the documents in his hand and Hal in the distance. He cleared his throat gently. Okay, stop arguing, I have something important to announce, and it is related to the Great Demon Director Martial Arts. Hearing the word Great Demon Director Martial Arts, the noise of the guild stopped instantly, and everyone was attracted by the news. Makarov looked at the crowd with satisfaction, nodded and continued, for this Great Demon Director Martial Arts, the active S-class wizards of Fairy Tale are eligible to participate. But his voice was slightly prolonged and paused, others need to pass the selection. Selection? Why is it so troublesome? Natsu frowned, looking dissatisfied. Makarov smiled and waved his hand, this is the rule set by the 4th generation. Fairy Tale will need to be selected for any activities in the future. 4th generation? Hal. Everyone involuntarily turned their eyes to Hal standing aside. Hal was stunned and scratched his head. Obviously, he didn't expect Makarov to mention him. Yes, I set the rules. This is also to prevent everyone from getting injured in the competition. After all, everyone's strength was not very strong 3 years ago. Natsu was still unconvinced, but Hal is no longer the president. The current president is Guildarts. Makarov immediately counterattacked, what about Guildarts? Wandering outside. Hal immediately replied, causing everyone in the audience to blacken their heads. Makarov's face sank. Because of this, I am responsible for all matters now, and only the current president can change the rules of the club. Tisk, okay. Everyone had no choice but to accept it. Makarov nodded with satisfaction, and then announced, in this S-Class candidate selection, A-Class Wizards will be one of the participating teams in the Grand Magician Martial Arts. Since the Guild's A-Class members are currently only Marcus and Walian, I will select 10 more A-Class Wizards from the Guild as S-Class candidates. S-Class candidates? Gray was a little speechless when he heard this. What's the use of S-Class candidates? Natsu complained. Makarov explained calmly. The so-called S-Class candidates mean that if you can defeat the active S-Class Wizards in the selection, you can directly become S-Class. Oh! Everyone heard this and the whole audience was boiling. Doesn't this mean that becoming an S-Class candidate basically means becoming S-Class? Ha 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 ha, Natsu said happily. Hey! I don't think it's that simple, Natsu Happy persuaded weakly. Okay, I like this, Jia-he, Gajeel said eagerly. A man should become an S-Class candidate. Elfman shouted. Is it really that simple? Fried held the sword on his waist and looked at Urza, Myra, and Hal beside him, thinking with a dark face. But it is undeniable that the whole guild has been boiling because of this news. Even the magic knights that Hal brought before are eager to move and look at Makarov. S-Class Wizards, that is the top existence of fairy tale. There are only 6 strongest combat forces in the guild, and no one wants to fall behind, especially guys like Natsu and Gray who are in fierce confrontation. At this time, Hal spoke, that, President, I have something to say. Go ahead, 4th generation. Makarov raised his eyebrows and looked at him. Well, although we can send 2 teams this time, 10 official members and 2 substitutes, I don't plan to represent the guild in the competition. What? Everyone was shocked. Even Myra looked at him in surprise. What do you mean, Hal? Hal shrugged and said calmly, I will represent the Prisco Empire this time. After all, we are the host, and there are some political factors. What? The audience was shocked again. But this is not a competition for the Magister Guild, why can Hal represent the Empire in the competition? Makarov on the side nervously reread the documents in his hand. It says that Emperor Ishgar will lead the Starfall God General and other strong men as the final examiners of each round. Natsu's fist ignited with flames, and he bumped his fists excitedly. Great, I actually have the opportunity to fight Hal. Urza and Myra also exchanged a knowing look with each other, with eager eyes. Even Laxus stopped when he heard this upstairs and looked at Hal with interest. This is interesting. Makarov said helplessly. He glared at Hal. You kid. Anyway, the competition will be very interesting. Hal smiled and waved his hand, preparing to leave. I'll go back and rest first. Wait. Makarov suddenly stopped him. Where are you going? Go home and sleep. Hal pulled Myra and replied weakly. Don't leave. Help me build 10 arenas and 10 defensive magic circles. I'm going to hold a selection competition, Makarov said seriously. Hal. A huge arena soon appeared in the entire Magnolia City. As for 10? Just kidding, there's no point in making so many. The noise attracted a large number of residents to come and ask. Mr. Makarov, what are these? The fishmonger asked curiously. Ah. This is the selection for the members of the Great Demon Director Wu. Great Demon Director Wu. That's really worth looking forward to. The previous 2 years were all Sword Bite Tiger. Is Fairy Tail finally going to participate this time? Yes, I will assign you a seat to watch the game when the time comes. Remember to come. Don't worry. As long as there is no danger, my whole family can come. My daughter likes Natsu and Gray very much. She said they seem to have a really good relationship. It's okay, it must be safe, cough cough. Makarov smiled awkwardly when he heard this. Not far away. Lucy looked at this scene with some amusement. 8 people? I'm so excited. Aren't there 12 people? Natsu said in confusion. All S-Class people are eligible, idiot, Lucy said coquettishly. Then Hal is gone. Missed and gone. I wonder if he will participate, Happy said after counting his paws. What nonsense are you talking about? Gray said on the side. Hey! I saw him 2 days ago. He was still dressed the same way, Happy replied. Hey! At Hal's house. Mistangon sat at the dining table in a serious manner. There was a very sumptuous dinner on the table, with on one side of the table, Urza, Myra, Laxus, and Hal. Eat more, especially you, Mr. Gone. I haven't seen you for 7 years, Myra said gently, looking like a hostess. You two haven't seen each other much before, Hal muttered quietly. Hey. Myra gave him a look. Ah. It's okay, Miston, try Myra's cooking. Hal took the initiative to pick up some food to relieve his sweat. Ah. Okay, Miston twisted a little unaccustomed. What's wrong, kid, why are you so embarrassed to be a king? Laxus drank a sip of wine and looked at him curiously. No. I'm just a little worried. Worried? Iluza will be angry, I haven't been back for so long, Miston said. Hey. Urza, who was eating strawberry cake on the side, looked at him in a daze. Ah. I'm not talking about you, Urza of Edras. Oh. Laxus became more curious when he saw this, and stopped drinking, looking at him with burning eyes. Miston was a little embarrassed by being stared at. Ignore him, Laxus, this guy is a bit henpecked. I mean, he is really with Urza. Laxus pointed at Miston and looked at Urza with a strange expression. Wow, great! Myra clapped her hands when she saw this. Urza's face became redder and redder as she listened. Although she knew it was not her, Miston was against Jalal's face. Well. We are going to have a child recently. Child. Urza's face became redder and redder. Oh. Who is this, Urza, or you? Hal looked at him with a smirk. Tell me quickly, what is Urza like in that world? Myra also looked at Miston excitedly. Laxus also looked at him. Miston. Just like that, a dinner party with only S-level people was all about the love story between Miston and Urza. Chapter 133. Miston Gang received an invitation from Hal a month ago. In the plan with Hal, Miston Gang also knew the time when everyone would return. So, when he knew the next plan of the first President Mavis, Miston Gang had no choice but to entrust Edras to Urza for supervision, and he came to Islam without hesitation. What a good brother! If he wasn't so embarrassed by his wife now. Alas, this is a man trapped in marriage, Hal said while looking at Miston Gang. Hey! Myra pinched him. Ah, I was wrong, Myra, be gentle, Hal begged for mercy. Miston Gang finally breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this. He was a little overwhelmed by the question just now. Seeing the appearance of the people in front of him, he thought with some emotion. Well. As expected, I am still a member of Fairy Tale, it feels so familiar. So, what are you doing back this time? Laxus drank a sip of wine on the side, his curiosity had just been satisfied. After hearing this, Miss Dong Ang's expression returned to a serious state, and he said firmly. Of course, as a member of Fairy Tale, I will participate in the Grand Magic Director's martial arts in 2 months. Hal told me that we will be in trouble. Trouble? Everyone looked at Hal curiously after hearing this. Ah! Hal, who was playing with Myra on the side, touched his head awkwardly. Did I forget to tell you? Otherwise, what else did you do in this month besides being with Myra? Laxus raised his eyebrows and looked at him with some dissatisfaction. Ahem. The lights in the living room flickered, and Hal began to tell his plan. The gate that goes through time. I see, you said that you came here 400 years ago by this. Yes, this time, a mysterious person tried to summon the dragon 400 years ago from that gate. That's bad, we can't resist the black dragon at all, Myra said with some concern. Well, the black dragon is indeed powerful, but he is the Dragon King, and there is a big gap between ordinary dragons and him, don't worry too much. Hal comforted. Interesting. Laxus clenched his fists, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. How many dragons do you think there are? Urza analyzed calmly on the side. Maybe, about 10,000. Hal looked at them and said carefully. Urza looked puzzled. Myra was shocked. Laxus raised his eyebrows. Hey, don't do this, as long as we can control the eclipse, we can control the number of dragons independently. Hal explained. Is this the threat you mentioned, Hal? Miston Gang said in confusion. If that's the case, why don't we just not open the door, so that we can also prevent the invasion of the dragons? No, the door must be opened. Why? Because people from the future have come to this world. Is there any causal relationship between the two? Theoretically speaking, before the door is opened, we can't detect the existence of people from the future at all. This is the rule, Hal explained. I have traveled through the time gate, so I know very well that unless you actively reveal your identity to others, you can't observe it. So that's it, which means we can't take the initiative to catch those people from the future. It's 2 people, Hal added. Why must the door be opened? Because, only by opening the door again can these people from another parallel world of time and space return to their world. Speaking of this, Hal paused again, and his tone became a little low. Besides, the most important thing is that I want to slay dragons. The lights in the living room suddenly trembled slightly at this moment, as if they felt the invisible pressure in the air. Everyone's breathing lightened, and the heavy atmosphere oppressed their hearts, like the silence before the storm. Slay dragons? Everyone was shocked. Yes, 10,000, I want to kill them all. Doing this will have an unpredictable impact on time and space. Urza said nervously. Don't worry, it's unlikely. Hal's voice became calm. These dragons. In history, they should have been slaughtered by black dragons. But the impact of time and space is unpredictable. Urza continued to refute, her tone full of concern. If too many changes are made, maybe the dead will come back to life, and the living will disappear. Hal's expression was a little lonely, he lowered his head slightly, his eyes dim. Yes, you are right. Then why do you still do this? Urza questioned, with a voice full of a trace of unconcealable emotional fluctuations. Because I want to defeat the Black Dragon. The Black Dragon has been eyeing me. Although he has not appeared in the past 7 years, I have a hunch. He will definitely come again later. His power is too strong. He will really kill all of us, including Fairy Tail. I have not yet resisted his power. Hal's voice was full of determination and grief. Urza's breathing stopped instantly, obviously not expecting Hal's true intention. The Black Dragon became stronger by bathing in dragon blood. Hal said slowly, his voice low and solemn. If I can kill those dragons first, maybe I can weaken his current power. After this sentence fell, the living room fell into silence. The lights became dim, projected on everyone's faces, and looked more solemn. There seemed to be an invisible pressure in the air that oppressed everyone's heart. They all knew that the Black Dragon was their mortal enemy, and Hal's destined enemy. The scenes on Tianlang Island are still engraved in their hearts. The horror of the Black Dragon is unforgettable, it is an irresistible force. However, the plan proposed by Hal may have irreversible impact on time and space, and the risks are too great. After a long time, Hal took a deep breath, a flash of determination in his eyes, breaking the silence. It's okay, everyone, I can do it alone, don't worry so much. At this moment, Urza suddenly stood up. Her eyes were firm, as if burning with hot flames, looking directly at Hal. No. If so, I will support you, Hal. Her voice was full of incomparable firmness, without any hesitation. Humph, very ambitious, worthy of being the Emperor of Ishgar. Laxus's mouth corners slightly raised, revealing an approving smile. Fairy Tail never abandons its companions, right? Mistangang also smiled and spoke, full of trust and firmness in his words. No matter what, let me stay with you, Hal. Myra gently held Hal's hand, her eyes full of unquestionable firmness. Her support was like a blazing flame, giving Hal the strongest support in his heart. Hal looked at the 4 people in front of him, and the 7 years of loneliness and heavy burden in his heart seemed to be completely unloaded at this moment. His eyes were slightly moist, his throat choked, and he said softly, "Thank you. Okay, it's a hard-won gathering, don't let these heavy things disturb us." Laxus stood up, smiled and raised his glass, with a hint of relief in his voice. "Let's toast first, as for the future plans, we will slowly plan, and be careful not to let the situation get out of control." "That's right, let's enjoy the joy in front of us now." Urza also showed a rare smile, her tone was soft, but it was full of determination. Seeing this, Hal also smiled and looked at the 4 people in front of him softly. His eyes were firm, and the strong sense of responsibility and fighting faith in his heart turned into an unshakable force at this moment. The 5 people raised their glasses and gently clinked them, and the liquid in the glass rippled, symbolizing their belief and bond in the future. They drank it all in one gulp, as if what they drank was their determination to face the coming storm together. As the night deepened, the moonlight gently sprinkled down, and the pond outside the house also rippled at some point, making Mavis, who was eavesdropping outside the house, smile comfortably. That's great. Hal. The girl's smile was gentle and concerned. Chapter 134. At noon, the Fairy Tale A-Class Wizard examination was held as scheduled. The entire Magnolia City was bustling with residents who came to watch, and the huge arena became the focus of everyone's attention. The crowd was bustling, vendors were selling all kinds of food, and street magicians were showing off their superb skills, as if it was a grand festival celebration. Hal and Myra held hands and walked briskly in front, followed by Laxus, Urza, and Miston. Last night's party made them sleep until noon, but in order not to miss today's examination, the 5 of them hurried over. There are so many people. Laxus squinted his eyes, raised his hand to block the dazzling sunlight, and glanced at the dense crowd. Well, it's rare. It seems that the residents of Magnolia are still very welcome to our fairy tale. Urza responded with a smile, with a hint of pride in her eyes. Miston Gang, who was standing aside, remained silent, but there was a hint of nostalgia in his eyes. For him, he had not set foot in this city for 7 years. Now that he returned here, he could not help but feel a lot of emotions. At this moment, Myra suddenly grabbed Hal's hand and shouted excitedly. Hal! Look, the mask over there is really beautiful, let's go and have a look. Her smile was as bright as the sun. Hal smiled slightly and let her pull him around. For Hal, this moment was a short and precious happiness. Although the threat of the future loomed, at present, the happiness of the moment was the most important. The girl next to him was the one he loved most in his heart. The longing and heavy responsibilities of the past 7 years almost crushed him, but fortunately, nothing changed, and everyone was getting better slowly. Looking at their backs running away, Laxus shook his head helplessly and shouted to the distance. Hey, don't run too far, the game is about to start. Don't worry. Hal and Myra's voices echoed not far away, accompanied by their laughter. The two walked through the busy streets and wandered between the stalls. Hal was pulled around by Myra. It was like returning to the carefree time of childhood before the memory was restored. Their laughter echoed throughout the street, attracting people to look at this couple with both good looks and strength. Of course, Hal and Myra cast a magic to conceal cognition at this time, unless someone took the initiative to call out their names. Otherwise, except for the members of Fairy Tale, no one could recognize that Hal, the famous Emperor Ishgar, would be here to play with girls. Boom! 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 The drums kept ringing, and a giant that kept getting bigger suddenly appeared on the stage in the distance. Oh! 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 Makarov kept getting bigger, and every time he got bigger, he would cause the residents of Magnolia below to exclaim. It's old man Makarov. He's still so young. Some middle-aged people looked at Makarov with emotion. Mr. President. Who will duel against whom in the first round of today's selection? A young man opened his mouth, tried to make his voice louder, and shouted to Makarov. Makarov looked at the crowd in front of him, and a smile appeared at the corners of his bearded mouth. He quickly responded with a huge loudspeaker. Fairy Tale A-Level Wizard Assessment, the first game, Natsu Dragneel vs Grey Fulp Asta. Oh! The crowd responded with a huge exclamation. On the huge stage, Natsu turned into a huge ball of fire and fell from the sky, sparks flying, causing the crowd in the audience to exclaim continuously. Where did this brat learn such a showy way of appearance? Hal complained in the audience, holding Myra's hand. The first match is between Natsu and Grey. The old man has a good idea. Laxus appeared beside Hal and responded without knowing when. Very impressive. Urza and Miston Gan, who were eating the same strawberry cake, echoed. Clang! At this moment, a huge ice staircase suddenly appeared in the air not far away, and Grey, wearing a white coat, walked over with his hands in his pockets with an unhappy look on his face. Oh! It's Grey-sama! Juvia immediately looked at Grey with red hearts in her eyes when she saw this. Grey, this kid, seems to be in a bad mood. Gajeel, who was standing next to him, touched Levy's hair with some curiosity and said. Natsu! Come on! Lucy sat on the side with Happy, holding Natsu's cheering stick and shouting excitedly. Grey on the stage heard Lucy's shouting, and his expression was obviously even more unhappy. He jumped directly from the ice stairs in the sky, landed on the ring, and stared at Natsu in front of him. At this time, Natsu was still looking at Lucy under the ring, with a confident expression. Hearing the sound of Grey landing, he turned his head and looked at Gray in front of him. He smiled and said, "You can't beat me anymore." "Ah." Gray looked at him unhappily. "You who don't respond to Juvia, you have no chance to compete with me who has already gained love," Natsu said shockingly, with a blazing flame in his hand. "Juvia." Juvia in the audience fell to the ground in response. "Hey!" Gray looked at him in confusion. "So, this is the secret weapon that you kept me waiting for last night?" Gray looked at him speechlessly. Yet, Natsu's flames became more and more blazing, and he said with confidence on his face. "I see, then I have to take a good look, Natsu." As soon as Gray finished speaking, he suddenly jumped up and rushed his cold fist straight to Natsu's face. Chapter 135. On the huge ring, the defensive magic circle loomed over the entire venue, emitting a faint glow. Surrounded by excited Magnolia citizens. Although the auditorium built by Howl with magic was large enough, it still could not accommodate all the enthusiastic residents. On the roof, between the treetops, and even in the flowers, there were crowds of people watching the excitement. 7 years later, can fairy tale still maintain its former strength? This question hovered in everyone's mind. After all, Saberbite Tiger has become famous in these years and has become one of the most powerful guilds in the kingdom. And today's assessment will allow Magnolia citizens to witness the strength of fairy tale. On the ring, the battle has begun. Natsu suddenly dodged Gray's fast straight punch. However, Gray's punch was obviously not an ordinary attack. The ice blue magic around the fist burst out instantly, sweeping out like a blizzard. With a light sound of ice cracking, the ring within 10 meters in front of the fist was instantly frozen, and the blue ice spread out, even half of Natsu's body was covered with fine ice chips. Tisk! Natsu felt Gray's cold magic penetrating his skin with some dissatisfaction, and the chill penetrated his bones. Gray put his hands in his pockets, his white coat fluttered gently in the wind, and there was a hint of ridicule in his tone. "What's wrong, Natsu? Are you scared? Let me see your strength, don't dodge any more." As soon as the voice fell, Natsu's body suddenly ignited with blazing flames, and the heat wave rolled, quickly evaporating the surrounding ice. The air was filled with steam, and the heat of the flames even made the air a little distorted. "The sneak attacker has no right to say such words." Natsu roared, turned into a blazing flaming arrow, and rushed straight to Gray. Gray's pupils instantly turned ice blue, like a cold ice crystal. He smiled faintly, waved his hands, and the icy breath spread from the ring, instantly blocking Natsu's flames. On the ring, the flames and icy magic collided violently, and the air seemed to be split into two worlds. On one side, the flames were as hot as the sun, and on the other side, the ice was as cold as frost. "You want to stop me with just this little bit of ice?" Natsu roared. His body suddenly expanded and turned into a huge fire dragon, and the violent flames swept the ring like a tsunami. The sharp horn of the fire dragon. Natsu's body turned into a burning edge, piercing Gray and instantly piercing his body. "I got it!" Natsu's eyes flashed with joy. But the next moment, Gray's figure broke like frost. It was just a substitute for the ice magic structure. "Ice make ice doll!" Gray's voice came from one side of the ring, accompanied by the breath of ice. "What?" Natsu turned his head in astonishment and saw Gray leaping high, condensing a huge ice hammer in his hand. "Ice make big hammer!" As Gray roared, the huge ice hammer fell from the sky and hit Natsu with violent force. The ring shook violently, as if the entire ground was shaking. "Hey, is the ring you built okay?" Laxus, who was watching the battle, frowned slightly and said to Hal half-jokingly. "As long as it is not a battle at the level of a great wizard of the Holy Ten, this ring can hold up." Hal responded calmly, but his eyes were still fixed on the fierce battle on the field. However, Gray's kid has indeed made rapid progress. After his magic power was enhanced, he actually mastered the best attack method of ice magic so quickly. Laxus nodded, with a hint of approval in his eyes. The absolute power of ice can completely control the battlefield. If the opponent is not Natsu. Hal added, his expression showing a calmness that saw through everything. At this time, Gray on the field seemed to have completely controlled the situation. His pupils were like a deep blue ice lake, calm and sharp. The huge magic power representing the lower level of the Holy Ten emanated from him, and the ring was quickly covered with ice and snow, as if entering a world of cold winter. Boom! Natsu slowly stood up from the ice and snow, without a trace of fire on his body, as if all the power was restrained in it. However, shockingly, although the flame disappeared, Gray's ice and snow could not hurt him at all. The ice and snow that touched Natsu's body were instantly evaporated by the invisible heat wave. What? Gray's eyes widened, staring at Natsu in front of him in disbelief. This Natsu without fire actually made his ice completely ineffective. Gray! Natsu's low roar was like thunder, and the sound echoed throughout the ring. Along with his voice, the ring began to tremble violently, as if alive. Boom boom! The huge arena was shaking constantly under Natsu's feet, like a resonance, and the vibration spread to the surroundings. What the hell is this? Gray frowned, not understanding Natsu's change. Gray didn't know about the battle between Natsu and Hal on Tenro Island. In his many years of fighting with Natsu, he was confident that he knew all of his methods. But now Natsu seemed to be integrated with this arena, and every vibration made the ice and snow shatter and collapse. Boom! Another vibration, Natsu's power seemed to be in sync with the earth. His magic power continued to recover and become stronger. Every time he stepped down, the ice and snow on the arena were gradually melting. You can't beat me anymore, Gray! Natsu suddenly exploded, his body shot out like a rocket, and his right fist instantly turned into a giant fist burning with blazing lava. The terrifying high temperature distorted the air, and even the icy breath around began to distort and dissipate. Each vibration melted the ice crystals in the air into water droplets, which dripped onto the ring and evaporated into white mist. Natsu's fist was no longer just a flame, but the anger of lava. This is the power Lucy gave me! Natsu roared, and his fist went straight to Gray. Boom! The collision of magic power set off a violent shock wave, and Gray was unable to resist Natsu's lava dragon fist. The difference in power was so obvious at this moment. Gray's ice shield was instantly shattered, and the whole person was shaken away. Boom! With a loud bang, the ring finally couldn't withstand the confrontation of these two huge forces, and it collapsed with a bang, and the gravel flew. Although the defensive magic circle protected all the spectators firmly, the citizens still watched all this in a daze. At this time, they couldn't help but ask themselves, is the sword-bite tiger really stronger than Fairy Tale? And in this silence, Lucy stood up with a blushing face, waving Natsu's cheering stick in her hand and yelling, "Stupid Natsu! Don't shout my name during a fight, it's so embarrassing." Hal covered his face and endured Laxus's ridicule, his face full of black lines. "Smelly boy Natsu, that's obviously my power." Laxus laughed so hard that he fell backwards, looking at Hal with a sullen face. "The ring is down, what did someone just say?" Ha 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 ha. Chapter 136. After being defeated, Gray walked off the ring in a daze. The physical fatigue was far less severe than the emptiness in his heart. Juvia hurried forward, with anxiety and worry in her eyes. "Gray-sama, what happened?" Gray raised his head with bitterness and regret that could not be concealed in his eyes, and whispered, "I lost." This is not the first time he has lost to Natsu. Since they met, the two have fought countless games, and the win-loss ratio has always been evenly matched. But this defeat made Gray feel heavy. This is not just a failure, but a complete defeat. Gray's eyes gradually focused on Juvia in front of him. This girl who always accompanies him silently and pays attention to him at all times, her eyes are full of concern and love. Gray knows Juvia's feelings for him, and that deep emotion makes him feel warm for a while, but also guilty. He suddenly remembered what Natsu said when he defeated him in the ring, and that sentence turned into Gray's inner voice. "You've been running away all the time. I am such a hopeless guy." Gray murmured in a low voice, with complex emotions surging in his heart. Juvia took a cautious step closer, her voice soft but full of worry. "Gray-sama, you look a little sad, is there something bothering you?" At this moment, the noise around seemed to gradually disappear, and it seemed that only Juvia was left in Gray's world. Whether it was the audience in the audience, the companions in the guild, or Natsu who was laughing ostentatiously in the ring, everything became blurred. "It's nothing, Juvia." Gray took a deep breath, and his eyes became soft. "I'm happy to have you by my side. I've been ignoring your feelings for so long, I'm sorry." Juvia was stunned, as if she couldn't believe what she heard. Gray had never spoken to her so bluntly before. Her cheeks flushed instantly, her heartbeat accelerated, and she could hardly control her emotions. Gray smiled softly, reached out and stroked her hair, whispered, "Thank you for staying with me all the time, I will respond to your feelings well." Juvia's mind was blank, Everything in front of her was like a dream, and finally she fainted happily. Juvia! Grey exclaimed, holding her waist and looking at her face worriedly. Holding Juvia who had fainted, Grey shook his head helplessly, and then slowly took her away from the ring. At the same time, the atmosphere in the ring was completely different. Hal looked at the ring that had been almost destroyed, sighed, and began to repair it. Laxus beside him laughed unscrupulously, ha ha ha. You are really miserable. Hey, how long are you going to laugh? Hal looked at him speechlessly. Laugh until the end of the great magic fighting exercise. That's enough. Hal replied unhappily. At this moment, Makarov stood on the stage, picked up the loudspeaker and announced, the next match, Gajeel vs. Juvia. Gehi, it's finally my turn. Gajeel laughed and jumped onto the stage. Come on Gajeel. Levi and Lily cheered for him from the audience. However, after a long time, Gajeel was still the only one on the stage. Juvia? Juvia! Makarov shouted with the loudspeaker. Ha ha ha, Juvia is afraid of me. Gajeel laughed. At this time, Myra came forward and whispered, President, Juvia just fainted, Grey is taking care of her. What? It's like this. Makarov was a little helpless for a while. Just as the audience began to discuss, Hal stood up, President, I think this is too inefficient. It's better to find an examiner to judge the winner. I recommend Mistin Gang. As he said, Hal directly pulled over Mistin Gang who was chatting and laughing with Urza. What? Makarov stared at the scene with wide eyes. Chapter 137. Nanny. Makarov looked at Mistin Gang standing next to Urza in shock. Following Makarov's reaction, the guild members and the audience also focused their attention on Mistin Gang. It's Mistin Gang. Natsu widened his eyes in disbelief. Isn't he the king of Edlas? How could he appear here? Gajeel frowned, looking very surprised. Prince? Lily's face also became solemn, and the dark cat face was full of disbelief. Mistin Gang was still wearing the black robe. The headdress and mask covered his face tightly, and his mysterious eyes revealed an unapproachable majesty. Actually, he was by my side just now, but I didn't notice it at all. Marcus, who was standing aside, looked confused, unable to believe that he didn't notice the existence of Mistin Gang. Mistin Gang. Makarov muttered to himself, staring deeply at the man he once knew. Mistin Gang bowed his head slightly to show his respect for Makarov. He grew up in Fairy Tale and was taken care of by Makarov. He was grateful to the old man. Welcome back, Mistin Gang. Makarov nodded with a smile, and then announced loudly. Since Mistin Gang is back, change the rules. He will directly test Gajeel. The people in the audience cheered instantly. S-Class Wizard. The most mysterious member of the guild is about to take action. Oh my god! I have been in the guild for so many years, and this is the first time I have seen Mistin Gang in person. Everyone in the guild was talking excitedly, and the atmosphere reached its peak instantly. Mistin Gang walked onto the stage quietly, and when he walked past Hal, he glared at him angrily. Hal shrugged innocently, why are you so fierce? Come back earlier to avoid suspicion. Mistin Gang always likes to keep a low profile. Urza explained. Hal raised his eyebrows with a wicked smile, hey, Urza, how long have we been talking? You've already started to speak for Mistin. As soon as he finished speaking. Suddenly, a golden figure rose into the sky from the crowd, and behind him were countless magic swords chasing him. At the same time, Gajeel on the ring looked stern, staring at Mistin who was walking slowly. Mistin. Interesting, this is the first time I've seen you fight. Gajeel rubbed his hands, eager to fight. I heard that you have integrated well, Gajeel. Mistin's voice was low and indifferent. Thanks to Lily and the little guy. Gajeel responded with a smile, but his expression suddenly became solemn before he finished speaking. He noticed that the aura emanating from Mistin became completely different, as if the whole air had become oppressive. Good wizard, stay calm at all times, Gajeel. Mistin's voice was still calm, but it contained a power that could not be ignored. Gajeel's pupil shrank, and he suddenly found that the ground under his feet was covered with a huge and complex explosion magic circle. Damn it! When? Boom! The explosion magic exploded instantly, and the flames and shock waves swept across the entire ring, and the sea of fire engulfed Gajeel's figure. Oh! The audience below the stage was instantly ignited with passion, and cheers came one after another. The ring was filled with smoke, and Gajil's figure disappeared without a trace. Miss Dong-Eng's figure also disappeared on the spot. Suddenly, a gust of wind broke out in the center of the ring, and the smoke and dust were blown away, revealing Gajil's figure. There was a green magic circle flashing under his feet, and his whole body turned into the color of steel. Hard iron filings covered his skin, revealing dragon scales. Gajil roared and opened his mouth, the roar of the iron dragon. The strong iron filings storm accompanied by deafening sound waves swept towards a certain direction of the ring. Miss Dong-Eng's figure appeared at the landing point of the attack, but he remained calm. Good judgment. His faint praise came from the iron filings storm. Boom! The impact of the storm resounded through the sky, and a smug smile just appeared on the corner of Gajil's mouth, but it froze in the next moment. Triple magic circle mirror water. 3 huge magic circles appeared in front of Miss Dong-Eng, shining in different colors. Gajil's attack was instantly sucked into it, and then, the more powerful magic impact rebounded back. What? Gajil's face changed suddenly, and he was instantly swallowed by the huge magic impact. What kind of magic is this? Jet widened his eyes and looked at Miss Dong-Eng in disbelief. Whether it is his way of moving or his way of casting, it is so mysterious. It should be sustained. Is there magic of the system? Levi stared at Miss Dong-Eng on the stage nervously. It is indeed magic of the system, but Miss Dong-Eng's control has reached the pinnacle. Ma Kao couldn't help but sigh. Yes, the prince has no magic power in his body, and he has already exerted the magician's skills to the extreme. Lily nodded. At this moment, Gajil felt that everything about him was calculated to death. The moment he tried to use magic to speed up and dodge the attack, a black magic circle suddenly lit up under his feet, and in an instant he was bound by gravity and could not move. He also tried to burst out stronger power, but everything was too fast. The dust gradually dissipated, and Gajil knelt on one knee, looking up at Miss Dong-Eng in front of him, his eyes full of awe. Too strong! Gajil whispered, and a sense of powerlessness surged in his heart. This kind of strength is completely different from the absolute suppression of Laxus. Miss Dong-Eng used calm and precise magic control to launch a fatal attack at the right time. Miss Dong-Eng's performance was not a crushing in terms of strength, but an attack with the least magic at the most critical moment to achieve the greatest effect. This is a real magic user who stays calm in any situation and accurately grasps the opportunity. The battle is over. Gajil lost. Makarov's voice echoed in the arena. Next, you will be ranked according to your performance in front of Miss Dong-Eng, and only the top 10 will be eligible to participate in the Grand Magic Fighting exercise. As Makarov announced the results of the game, Miss Dong-Eng's figure slowly twisted and disappeared into the air. The audience and guild members in the audience burst into deafening cheers. So strong! This is one of the strongest candidates for fairy tale. The red-armored boy in the audience couldn't help but sigh, his tone full of admiration. The entire audience was filled with shock and excitement. Miss Dong-Eng showed the true strength of fairy tale's S-class wizard with an impeccable battle. The audience and guild members in the audience were deeply impressed and amazed. Chapter 138. From that day on, Miss Dong-Eng started his commissioned mission inexplicably. Client, 3rd Generation President Makarov. Commissioned mission, go to the ring every day to select A-level wizards, assess their strength, and summarize the top 10 after a week. And Hal, the instigator of everything, always sat under the ring and watched Miss Dong-Eng drink tea. On this day, the sun was bright, the air was fresh, and the breeze blew gently. Gray turned over from the bed and looked out the window with a dazed look. The sun shone on his face, and the warm feeling made him a little dazed. He rarely woke up so lazily. In the past, he was always used to going to the guild early to complete tasks or chat with his companions. However, as soon as he woke up today, a familiar figure emerged in his mind. Juvia. Juvia. Gray whispered her name. Thinking of her cute appearance, his mood became inexplicably happy. However, just as he was immersed in this warmth, a familiar voice suddenly came to his ears. Gray-sama. Are you calling Juvia? Hey! Gray was startled for a moment, and turned his head suddenly, only to see Juvia slowly crawling out from under his bed. She was wearing a cute pajamas, with a satisfied smile on her face, as if she had slept very soundly last night. Juvia, how come you are under my bed? Gray was stunned and didn't know how to react at all. He stared at Juvia's face full of happiness, and was speechless for a while. Juvia smiled sweetly, looked up at Gray, and said gently. Because Gray-sama said that he would respond to Juvia's feelings, Juvia wanted to hear your response as soon as possible, so she left the dormitory and moved here. After listening to this, Gray felt helpless and warm in his heart. Juvia's persistence and sincerity always made him not know how to refuse. He sighed, slowly approached Juvia, and gently embraced her in his arms. You are so willful. Gray said softly, but there was no blame in his tone, but a little tenderness. Juvia leaned quietly in Gray's arms, closed her eyes, and felt his warm breath. Her voice was still soft. Well, Juvia is willing to do anything for Gray-sama, no matter when and where, as long as it is Gray-sama's decision, Juvia will obey. Gray hugged her tightly, but his heart was full of complicated emotions. He had never faced a person so seriously, and he had never felt love so truly. He lowered his head and whispered, I like you, Juvia. I really like you. But, unlike Natsu, I can't say the word love so easily. I want to prepare well and truly love someone, not just on impulse. Juvia raised her head, her blue eyes full of tenderness and understanding. Juvia understands, whatever Gray-sama wants to do, Juvia will always be by your side until that day. Juvia, why can you always accept me so unconditionally? Gray's voice was a little moved, he never thought he would be surrounded by such firm emotions. Juvia's smile became warmer, she raised her hand and gently stroked Gray's face, her voice as soft as water. Because, Juvia had already decided when she first met Gray-sama. You let me see the light of life and let me feel the warmth of the blue sky and sunshine for the first time. So, no matter what, Juvia will always be by your side. Gray's heart was filled with an indescribable touch, and the corners of his eyes were unconsciously wet. He hugged Juvia tightly, feeling her warmth and firmness, and for the first time, he felt so peaceful and happy in his heart. I like you too, Juvia, just like you, I like you the most. Gray said softly, his voice full of affection and seriousness. Please let me use time to prove that I will say that to you seriously. After Gray finished speaking, the throbbing in his heart gradually turned into a firm emotion. Juvia smiled sweetly, as if melting in his arms. Well, Juvia will always be by your side, waiting for that day, Gray-sama. The sun shines through the window and falls on the two of them. The warm atmosphere enveloped them, as if time stopped at this moment, and only their heartbeats gently echoed between each other. Chapter 139. In the dim tavern, the air was filled with the smell of stale wine and a sense of oppression. The oil lamp on the wall emitted a weak light, which could hardly illuminate the entire room. Only in the corner could a bearded man be vaguely seen. He sat there, with his head down, holding a glass of wine tightly in his hand, his eyes empty, as if he had been isolated from the outside world. The table was piled with messy empty bottles, rolling on the floor. His clothes were tattered, his coat was casually draped over his shoulders, and he wore cheap magic cloth shoes on his feet. The former sharpness had long been wiped out by time, leaving only endless fatigue and decadence. Where's the wine? He suddenly roared angrily, and smashed the empty wine glass in his hand into the corner. The wine glass hit the wall, making a dull sound, and fragments flew everywhere. The tavern owner stood behind the bar, his eyes calm and numb. Guest, it's closed, there is no wine. The owner has become accustomed to the drunken state of this regular customer. A few years ago, Meister was still a young man full of justice. Although he was a little decadent, there was always a glimmer in his eyes. Now, this glimmer has long disappeared, replaced by day-to-day alcoholism and irritability. I said I want wine. Meister stood up suddenly, staggering, staring at the boss with a chaotic look. You've drunk enough, guest. It's time to go back and rest. The boss was no longer polite, and his tone became cold and hard. He has endured Meister's violence for a long time. Meister's eyes condensed, looking directly at the boss with displeasure, and his fists clenched slightly. Just as the atmosphere became stalemate, the door of the tavern was suddenly pushed open. A dozen gangsters walked in swaggeringly, waving various weapons in their hands, their eyes full of provocation. Smelly boy! You hit me yesterday, and today I will make you pay the price. The gangster leader smiled sinisterly and ordered his men to surround Meister. Meister blinked in confusion, stood up shakily, and tried to take a defensive posture. But obviously, the alcohol had completely destroyed his sense of balance. The gangsters grinned, rushed forward, and pushed him to the ground. Humph, you can't do it after just 2 hits. The gang leader laughed disdainfully. Meister lay on the ground, drowsy, with traces of vomiting at the corners of his mouth. The gangsters did not intend to stop there. They formed a circle, punching and kicking, constantly venting their anger. At this moment, the door of the tavern was pushed open again, and a gust of cold wind poured in, blowing away the oppressive atmosphere in the tavern. A tall figure walked in. His armor glowed with a cold metallic luster in the dim light. He wore a black helmet, a black eye mask on his right eye, and a red cloak behind him. The whole tavern was quiet in an instant, and even the gangsters unconsciously stepped back a few steps under this pressure. Who are you? The gang leader felt something was wrong, and there was a hint of fear in his tone. The tall man did not answer, but said coldly, "Take them away." As soon as he finished speaking, several soldiers wearing black magic armor walked out from behind him, with neat and fast steps, and quickly surrounded the gangsters. Imperial Army. Someone among the gangsters recognized the identity of these soldiers and his face turned pale instantly. "We are just a small fight, sir, don't take it so seriously." The gang leader hurriedly explained, his voice trembling a little. "It's not up to you to decide." The tall man responded coldly, signaling the soldiers to take action. The soldiers acted quickly, and their burly bodies showed amazing strength. In just a few breaths, the gangsters were beaten to the ground and wailed everywhere. That overwhelming power made everyone dare not act rashly. "Take him away." Following the man's order, the black-armored soldiers took the hooligans away one by one, and the tavern returned to silence. At this moment, only the embarrassed Mester and the tavern owner with a look of awe were left in the tavern. The tall man walked in front of Mester and looked down at the drunk man on the ground. "You are Mester." Mester barely opened his eyes and said weakly, "Who are you?" The man did not answer, but said coldly, "I am Simon." The last memory gradually blurred in Mester's mind. All he had left was the black magic armor emitting a faint red light. Then, his consciousness completely fell into darkness. Chapter 140. In Hal's home, the morning sun shines through the curtains into the warm living room. Mr. Gang packed up his clothes and left Hal's guest room with a gloomy look. "Oh, you left early, Mr. Gang." Hal sat on the sofa in the living room, smiling and waving casually. Mr. Gang turned his head, his face full of black lines. "Who do you think is responsible for this? As the strongest candidate, what's wrong with doing some work?" Hal looked innocent and didn't seem to care about it. "You." Mr. Gang shook his head, didn't want to pay attention to him anymore, and left quickly. Hal turned around, looked at Myra in his arms, and asked with concern, "Has Mr. Gang eaten?" "It seems not yet." "Poor king of a country." Hal sighed, but the corners of his mouth rose slightly, and it felt good to trick Mr. Gang. Not long after, Wendy and Xiaolulu also came out of the bedroom. "Harney, Sister Myra, good morning." Wendy's voice was as clear as the chirping of a morning bird. "Good morning, Wendy, Xiaolulu." Hal and Myra responded at the same time. "I heard Brother Natsu say in the guild yesterday that he would come to visit you today." Wendy said obediently, with excitement in her eyes. Visit me?" Hal looked confused, unable to imagine how Natsu would appear. "Yes." Xiaolulu added calmly, with a smile on her lips. Just at this moment, the doorbell rang at home, and Wendy immediately jumped excitedly to open the door. It must be Brother Natsu. Under Hal's careful care, the little girl has become as innocent as an ordinary 12 or 13-year-old child. "Hey, good morning, Wendy, Xiaolulu." Natsu stood at the door, holding a bunch of things in his hands, with a sunny smile on his face. Behind him, Lucy looked nervous, and Happy looked helpless. "Smelly boy, come in and talk," Hal said dissatisfiedly, feeling that nothing good was going to happen. "Hee." Natsu grinned and walked in. Happy walked to Xiaolulu helplessly and sighed, "Hey! What's wrong, Happy?" Xiaolulu asked in confusion. "Natsu is so shameless, I'm a little embarrassed." Happy pouted. On the sofa in the living room, Natsu took Lucy's hand and looked at Hal and Myra with a smile on his face. "Hee, honey, I'm here to see you. Why have you changed so much? Don't beat around the bush, unlike you, who is less than 20 years old and pretends to be an adult." Hal criticized bluntly. "Ah, then I'll get straight to the point, hee." Natsu looked serious. "Hurry up." Hal held his forehead helplessly. Lucy and I are together. Natsu said firmly. I know, and then what? Hal responded with a little helplessness. Harney, I think you need to help us. Natsu scratched his head embarrassedly. Hey! Hal was instantly confused. Why me? Because I can only think of you. Natsu said confidently. But you are not without money, what are you doing? Hal was speechless. Lucy wants to buy a house. Natsu continued. That's it, then buy it. Hal answered casually. Wait, which house? Hal suddenly felt something was wrong and drank a sip of water. Lucy's Hartfield mansion. Puff. Hal spit out a mouthful of water, looking shocked, and Myra quickly wiped his mouth with a tissue. You kid. Hal shook his head helplessly. Harney, you said that you would give me a gift when you become an adult, have you forgotten? Natsu pretended to be innocent. When did I say that? Hal looked confused. You said so. I didn't. You said so. Forget it, how much? Just use my magic card to buy it yourself. Hal finally compromised. Nice. I knew Hal was rich. Natsu shouted excitedly. He is indeed rich, and you two don't need this, just be honest and don't make so many things. Hal was speechless. Don't you think it's a bit too direct? Natsu said with a smile. Okay. I raised you kid, and now you can't make do with Lucy. Spend it as you like, as for the Hartfilia mansion, I said a word, there's no need to spend money to buy it. Hal said indifferently. Really? Natsu and Lucy asked in surprise. Great, Lucy, I can finally restore your home to the way it was before. Natsu excitedly shook Lucy's hand. Well, thank you, brother Hal. Lucy blushed slightly said gratefully. She actually just had this idea, but she didn't expect Natsu to directly drag her to Hal's house to ask for money. Come to think of it, I should give you a gift or something. Hal said, taking off the only 3 rings left on his left hand. These 3 rings, one for you, one for Lucy, and one for Wendy. Hal looked at Natsu seriously. Hey? I have one too. Wendy, who was standing aside, was a little surprised. Oh. Thank you, Hal. Natsu exclaimed. He knew the origin of these rings. They were all magic devices collected by Hal when he was young, and they were very powerful. Natsu is holding the Thunder one, which I modified with Laxus's Thunder and Lightning. Hal continued to explain. Lucy is holding the Water one, so you don't have to worry about the problem of not being able to summon Aqua. Wendy is holding the Wind one, which can restore physical strength and magic at any time. Hal said with a smile. Looks good. Lucy put on the ring, with a stunning light in her eyes. Wendy was also surprised, it's really beautiful. It's not just beautiful. After being improved by Edras, it can restore magic power on its own, enhance the user's magic power, and protect the user. It is a very powerful magic device. Hal explained. Ah, that's too expensive. Lucy was a little embarrassed. It doesn't matter. You are all my brothers and sisters. Besides, this thing doesn't improve me much. Hal said gently. Nice. Lay. I'm going to duel Laxus now. Natsu ran out excitedly. Hey, Hal was a little speechless. Lucy and Wendy smiled at each other, and the atmosphere in the living room was relaxed and happy. Lucy, Natsu is sometimes careless. From now on, you will be by his side to take good care of him. Hal looked at Lucy and said seriously. Don't worry, brother Hal, I will always be by his side. Lucy nodded firmly. Chapter 141. The A-class wizard selection lasted for 10 days. Every day, Mistangon appeared on the ring like clockwork and left on time. Although his actions were simple and low-key, his precise control of magic power and deep understanding of magic in the ring amazed everyone. Many guild members gathered to watch his fight. Not only that, even wizards from the neighboring city came to see him. Mistangon's reputation spread rapidly throughout the area like a gust of wind. Finally, in January X791, Makarov officially confirmed the list of participants. Fairy Tale S Team, Laxus, Myra, Mistangon, Gajil, Jovia Substitute, Makarov. Fairy Tale A Team, Natsu, Grey, Urza, Lucy, Wendy Substitute, Elfman. In February X792, the Fairy Tale Guild ushered in the new year. It's very lively again this year. Hal stood at the door of Fairy Tale and looked back at his companions who were still celebrating. A reluctant smile appeared on his face, but he quickly put away his emotions and turned to walk towards the black battleship. Imperial Capital Fuss Roll. Your Majesty Hal, welcome back to the Imperial Capital. Mingju stood at the door of the main hall of Hachi Royal City and greeted him with a bright smile. Yet. Hal nodded in response, his expression was indifferent, but his steps were firm. How is Jalal's preparation? He asked casually. He seems to be a little reluctant to participate in the competition, Mingju shrugged helplessly, but it's not the first time. Humph, a shy man, don't bother him. Hal waved his hand indifferently. In the main hall, Brother Cat was concentrating on handling state affairs. Long time no see, Brother Cat. Hal took the initiative to say hello. You still know how to come back. Hey. Hal hurriedly blocked it, but Brother Cat bit it. It's so hard. Brother Cat wailed, and his teeth touched Hal's rock-hard muscles. Of course, I'm the Dragon Slayer of the Earth. Hal patted Brother Cat's head gently. Damn, my teeth. Brother Cat touched his mouth and frowned. Don't scream, I'll heal you. After a while, Brother Cat's teeth were restored to their original state. I heard you are going to participate in the Great Demon Fighting Martial Arts. Brother Cat asked. Yes, but you don't seem to understand the meaning of this competition, right? Hal chuckled. What is there to compare? Our strength is already proud of the entire continent. Brother Cat said disdainfully. For my Dragon Slayer plan. Hal's eyes suddenly became deep and cold. Brother Cat was stunned, then he became serious. Dragon killing plan? Tell me about it. Hal briefly recounted his dragon killing plan. After listening to it, Brother Cat's face twitched slightly, and he finally complained, You really do whatever you want? What's wrong? Such an important plan, you should have told me a long time ago. Brother Cat was a little crazy. Hal smiled, I believe you. After hearing this, Brother Cat's face couldn't help but blush. Okay, I know. In the side hall, Altair and Jalal were wearing luxurious imperial white robes, waiting for Hal's arrival. Long time no see, Hal. Jalal spoke first, his voice calm. It's been so long, you don't go to see Urza. Hal raised his eyebrows, smiling. Jalal seemed a little hesitant. He just wanted to meet at the great magic fighting exercise to show off. Altair complained bluntly. Well. Jalal remained silent. Harl smiled jokingly, I'm telling you, you and Urza from Edlas have been together for a long time, and you are even planning to have a baby. Child. Jalal's eyes wavered slightly. And you and Urza from Edlas have a very good relationship, maybe. Jalal stood up suddenly and disappeared in an instant. I'll go see her now. Hey. Harl looked helplessly at the direction where Jalal disappeared, smiled bitterly and shook his head. In March, the great magic battle is about to begin. Fairy Tale A Team. Natsu and his group are riding in a dragon car and rushing to the flower city, Crocus. This is my first time in Crocus. Lucy looked at the sea of flowers outside through the car window, excited like a child. Hey, me too. The harpy jumped off Lucy's shoulder, flapped its wings, and flew over the carriage, circling. Grey, you're taking off your clothes again. Natsu suddenly caught sight of Grey and immediately frowned. Stinky fire dragon, I'm not taking off my clothes. Grey lazily leaned on his seat. He was sitting on the seat, holding a coat in his hand, casually draped over his shoulders. Hey? You kid! Before he finished speaking, Natsu had already rushed over, and the two of them instantly fought each other, and the carriage was suddenly in chaos. Really, you two, at least wait until after the game before fighting. Urza sighed helplessly while enjoying the strawberry cake in her hand. Wendy smiled slightly, carefully held the teacup, and handed it to Xiaolulu. Come on, Xiaolulu, have some tea. Okay, thank you Wendy. Xiaolulu thanked softly, and her soft claws gently took the teacup. She was about to take a sip, and suddenly, a cold feeling came over her mind. Her vision blurred for a moment, and the liquid in the teacup was like a mirror, reflecting a terrible picture. In the strong wind, the expression of a black and white-haired man suddenly became distorted and full of madness. In the distance, the figure of the first President Mavis appeared in the heavy shadow, her face full of anger and pain. Farther away, Hal was suspended in the air alone, facing the overwhelming 10,000 dragons. His eyes were as cold as iron, and the whole person stood in the war like a motionless statue. What's going on? Xiaolulu's pupils contracted violently, and the teacup slipped from her claws, spilling a few drops of tea. Wendy keenly noticed the abnormality and immediately asked with concern, Xiaolulu, what's wrong? I saw a terrible future. Xiaolulu trembled slightly, her voice with undisguised panic. Chapter 142. Flower City. Crocus. Natsu, carrying a bag, walked leisurely on the street with Lucy and Happy, not paying any attention to Urza who was dragging a lot of luggage behind him. Ah! A cute voice sounded. A golden light flashed, and Urza and her large luggage disappeared in an instant. Hey? What happened? Natsu stopped and looked back in confusion. Urza is gone. Lucy looked back with a bit of surprise on her face. Hey! Even her large luggage disappeared. Happy added. Don't worry about her, maybe she met someone. Natsu smiled. The movement just now did not escape his perception, and he was not worried at all. Lucy nodded obediently, and the three continued to play easily. Outside the city, on a huge rocky mountain above the plain, a golden light flashed, and Jalal landed on the towering rocky mountain with Urza in his arms. He felt as if Urza in his arms was carrying a heavy object, and couldn't help frowning, it's so heavy. Urza looked at him in surprise. Jalal. Her eyes flashed with the joy of reunion after a long separation. Jalal responded calmly, long time no see, Urza. Urza lowered her head slightly, rarely showing the shyness of a little girl. Well, I haven't seen you for a long time. I heard that you have become famous recently and have done a good job. Jalal raised his mouth. Oh. I have to thank Hal for his help. His plan is thorough, and I just did my part. Urza nodded slightly, her eyes deep. I heard that you defeated hundreds of thousands of black magic cultists in the sky-shattering war. That was the plan of the first president, and I didn't do anything important. Jalal said modestly. But you joined our guild, right? Urza asked suddenly. Well, the guild seal is in the same place, and the color is crimson. Jalal replied with an evasive look. What? You're also on the shoulder, and it's crimson. Urza's face showed a bit of embarrassment, and her eyes slightly evaded. Learn from me. She muttered in a low voice. Learn from you. Jalal smiled, his eyes were gentle, and there was a hint of pampering in his tone. Urza quickly changed the subject. What do you want to see me for? Jalal paused slightly, raised his head, his eyes softened, and his voice was low and magnetic. Nothing. I just want to see you. This simple sentence made Urza's heart jump suddenly. Her cheeks were instantly stained with a layer of crimson, her eyes flickered a little, and she didn't dare to look directly at Jalal. I want to see you too, Jalal. The two people's eyes met in the air, as if the world around them had stopped at this moment, and there were only the two of them. The tense atmosphere gradually softened, warmth flowed between the two, and the distance between them was unconsciously shortened. There seemed to be an invisible attraction in the air, which made the two get closer and closer. Jalal's face gradually approached Urza, and his eyes revealed a rare tenderness and complexity. Urza closed her eyes, her heartbeat accelerated, as if she could hear the blood rushing in her ears. Finally, their lips touched gently, and the touch at that moment was like an electric current that instantly penetrated the whole body, making both of them tremble slightly involuntarily. This kiss did not last too long, but it seemed to condense all the unspoken feelings between the two. However, at this moment, Jalal's expression suddenly became stiff. He turned his head away suddenly, as if he realized something, and a trace of embarrassment that could not be concealed quickly appeared on his face. He hurriedly raised his hand to support his forehead, as if trying to hide his inner turmoil, with a little unnatural tension in his voice. Don't look at Miston Hill anymore. I'm leaving. As soon as he finished speaking, Jalal's figure turned into a flashing golden light in the air and quickly disappeared in front of Urza, as if nothing had ever happened. Urza was stunned, her eyes were dull, and her cheeks were still as red as fire. She felt a sense of loss inexplicably, as if she had not yet recovered from the short kiss. She looked at the empty rocky mountaintop, her heart was complicated. Why is it like this every time? She murmured in a low voice, with a hint of helplessness and confusion in her eyes. Just as she was in her emotions, a familiar golden light flashed again. Jalal's figure appeared in front of her again, as if his departure just now was just a misunderstanding. This time, he didn't say much, just smiled slightly, with a touch of pampering in his eyes. He walked forward and gently held Urza in his arms, his movements gentle but firm. "I forgot to bring you back." Urza was in his arms, she was slightly startled, and was instantly surrounded by the sudden warmth. The blush on her face reappeared, she quietly lowered her head, and a complex emotional fluctuation surged in her heart, shyness, sweetness and the uncontrollable throbbing. In a blink of an eye, Urza returned to the streets of Crocus, and landed behind Natsu and Lucy. "Oh? You're back." Natsu looked back and saw Urza still pulling a lot of luggage, and said with a smile. Urza's face was still red, and everything that had just happened was echoing in her mind. She stood there blankly, looking a little absent-minded. Thousands of miles away in the sky, Cobra crossed his arms and a teasing smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. His red hair fluttered in the wind, and the whole person looked extremely happy. Altia noticed his change, raised her eyebrows slightly, turned her head and asked curiously. "What's wrong, Cobra? You are so happy all of a sudden, what's the good news?" Cobra didn't answer immediately, but just chuckled, with a hint of playfulness in his eyes. "I heard it, the loneliness, impulse, passion in Jalal's heart, and he." He didn't finish his words, but his smug expression said it all. The smile on Cobra's mouth became more wanton, as if he was savoring some hilarious secret. Altia's eyes suddenly lit up, she put her hands together, and a gossipy light flashed in her eyes. "Quick! Tell me in detail. What did you hear?" She came to Cobra excitedly, her face full of expectation and curiosity. Seeing this, Cobra's smile became even more rampant. He deliberately dragged out his tone, enjoying the pleasure of teasing. "Hey, let me tell you that Jalal and Urza just now." Altair's eyes lit up when she heard it. She looked into the distance with expectation. "Jalal, you are indeed the one with the information. I really want to tell all of Ishgar about these things." Kurikas. On a street full of flowers. Wendy gently lifted her skirt, wearing the sky blue skirt given to her by Myra, with the hem fluttering in the wind, and a blue sun hat on her head, looking fresh and cute. She carried a small pink bag, and her steps were brisk, like an elf dancing in the flowers. "Xiaolulu. The flowers are so big. There are flowers everywhere, Sister Myra and Brother Har will definitely like it." Wendy's eyes sparkled, and there was a bit of excitement in her voice. "Yes, let's go around and buy them some gifts." Xiaolulu floated gracefully beside Wendy, with an expectant light in her eyes. "Okay." Wendy smiled like a little flower and responded happily. In fact, since Wendy joined Fairy Tale, she has been living in Howl's house, thinking silently in her heart how to repay this brother who cares about her. And this time, she finally found an opportunity to express her gratitude with a gift. In the distance, a pair of black and white figures quietly watched Wendy. Sting Yukron, with short yellow and white hair shining like silver in the sun, handsome and cold face, eyes as sharp as an eagle, revealing a sense of confidence and the pressure of a strong man. He wore a simple white combat suit with a golden thread representing holy light on his shoulders. The clothes swayed gently with the breeze, as if the whole body was emitting a faint glow, giving people a feeling of holiness and inviolability. "That must be the celestial dragon, Wendy." Sting's mouth corners slightly raised, revealing a hint of smile, and his eyes looked at the girl not far away with a sharp gaze. "That's right." Rikuta beside him also smiled, with a bit of excitement on his face. Behind Sting, Roger Chaney stood in the shadows, as if blending into the darkness. His long black hair draped over his shoulders smoothly, and his dark red eyes looked deep and cold in the shadows. His dressing style was completely different from Sting's. The black cloak seemed to swallow up the surrounding light, making him look more mysterious and dangerous, like a shadow dragon lurking in the dark, ready to attack at any time. "It seems that Fairy Tale will indeed participate in the great magic battle in Ishgar this time." Rog's voice was cold, with a bit of ruthless judgment. "Flossie thinks so too." Flossie responded softly beside them. Sting chuckled and turned to Roger. "Why, you are not looking forward to it? I heard that Gajeel was defeated. You are not disappointed by this, right?" There was a teasing tone in his words. Roger smiled coldly and glanced at Sting. "It is normal to lose to Miston Gang. He is an extremely rare strong man." His voice was still cold, without any emotional fluctuations. Compared with the arrogance in the original work, This at that time, Sting and Rog had obviously matured a lot. They no longer relied on their past arrogance, but realized the vastness and danger of this world. The rise of the Ishgar Empire brought countless strong men, and they no longer dared to call themselves the strongest. Facing the storm of this era, their pride was sharpened and more restrained. At this moment, Sting and Rog's strength was close to the level of the 10 holy mages. The oppressive feeling they exuded was enough to make the air around them stagnate. They knew that only by constantly becoming stronger could they gain a foothold in this continent full of strong men. Chapter 143. On the streets of Crocus, the lights gently sprinkled on the ground, and the night began to fall. A black-haired boy stood quietly under the street light, with a slender figure and a cold face, attracting the attention of countless passers-by. The cold temperament of Grey formed a sharp contrast with the warm atmosphere around him, making him look particularly unique. Not far away, Juvia, wearing a blue dress, ran towards him briskly, her eyes full of joy. "Grey-sama! Juvia is here!" Her voice was full of expectation and joy. Yet, Grey still responded lightly, but there was a hint of softness in his eyes, as if he had long been accustomed to Juvia's enthusiasm. They walked side by side tacitly, and the flowing lights on the street reflected on the two of them, illuminating their way forward. Although the two did not say too much, the atmosphere seemed particularly quiet and warm. "Brother Laxus said that we have to return to our residence before 12 o'clock. Juvia mentioned softly, fearing that the tranquility at the moment would be broken. Grey glanced at her, his tone still calm. "Really? No one cares about us here." Everyone dispersed as soon as they arrived at the Flower City. Juvia's eyes lit up, with a little shyness on her face. "Won't that make Grey-sama wait for Juvia for a long time?" "It's okay, it's fine," Grey said lightly. "No, it's Juvia's fault. It delayed Grey-sama's time." Juvia felt a little guilty and lowered her eyes. Grey stopped, sighed slightly, turned around and looked at her. "I said, it's okay." His voice was a little helpless, but more of a gentle tolerance. He looked down at Juvia, and suddenly a trace of emotion rose in his heart. So he subconsciously reached out and gently held her hand, but his eyes were slightly dodging, as if a little unnatural. "Really? Let's go, the night view of the Flower City is beautiful." Juvia suddenly looked up, her face full of surprise and shyness. She couldn't believe that Grey actually took the initiative to hold her hand. Her heartbeat accelerated and her cheeks flushed slightly. "Yet." Juvia nodded gently, her voice was soft, but her heart was like a lot of deer running wildly. The two of them walked hand in hand in the night of the Flower City. The lights on the street reflected their figures, and they looked like an ordinary couple. The atmosphere was quiet and warm. Grey's calmness and Juvia's shyness formed a unique harmony. The tacit understanding between the two gradually deepened during this short walk. In this prosperous Flower City, their world seemed to have only each other. On the other side, Wendy and Xiaolulu were playing in the Huating Palace. The moonlight shone through the lush flowers and trees, casting a silent light and shadow. "Huating Palace is so big, Xiaolulu," Wendy said softly. "Yes, I just don't know why there is such a big rock mountain nearby." Xiaolulu couldn't help but complain. At this moment, a black shadow suddenly appeared from behind and quickly rushed towards Wendy. Her ring flickered slightly, and instantly generated a sky-blue light shield to block this fatal blow. "Who is it?" Wendy and Xiaolulu's heartbeats suddenly accelerated. They looked around, and the tense atmosphere spread instantly. The black shadow turned out to be a demon that looked like a cat, with wisps of black air floating all over its body, exuding a gloomy and ominous atmosphere. It gave them a sly smile and then fled quickly. "What's the situation?" Wendy asked fearfully, and the fear in her heart spread. "I don't know, let's go back first." This time, the Ishgar Grand Magic fighting exercise doesn't seem to be simple, Xiaolulu said, holding Wendy's hand tightly and taking her away quickly. In the hotel of Team A of Fairy Tale, Urza was wearing purple pajamas and was playing poker cards boredly, with a slightly dissatisfied expression. "Really, Jalal, you're not coming today?" she muttered to herself. Her eyes were a little wandering, and there was no one else in the room except her. Natsu and Lucy took Happy around, and the witness Walian told Urza that Grey was enjoying a candlelight dinner with Juvia. "Damn it! Why are they all starting one by one? Isn't our A team going to fall behind?" Urza muttered. At this moment, Wendy hurried in and threw herself into Urza's arms, looking panicked. "Sister Urza, there is an evil thing following us. What? Urza exclaimed, and immediately hugged Wendy tightly, feeling uneasy. She quickly changed into the distant clothes and looked out the window vigilantly. Under the dim street lights, she caught a glimpse of the Black Devil's smiling face flashing, and then disappeared in an instant. It has been following me, it's terrible. Wendy cried, hugged Urza tightly, and felt her warm comfort. It's okay, Wendy, it's gone. Urza whispered to comfort, secretly relieved in her heart. Tell me what happened. She asked softly. Xiaolulu and I were visiting the Huating Palace, and it suddenly attacked us. If it weren't for the ring that Brother Hal gave me, I would have. Wendy choked up, and her gratitude was overflowing. So that's it, it seems that Hal really thought about it. Urza sighed. Well, Brother Hal is really good. Wendy nodded, with a smile on her face, although she was still a little scared. Soon, Natsu and others also rushed back. What? Wendy was attacked. Natsu exclaimed, a stern expression instantly appeared on his face, and the flames of anger burned around him. Where is the enemy? Let me kill him. The enemy has left. Our primary goal now is to pass the preliminaries. Iluza said calmly, trying to keep everyone calm. Pass the preliminaries? Lucy asked in confusion. Yes, there are many guilds participating in this competition, more than 300, and the Empire has limited the number of participating guilds. Iluza explained, with a serious tone. More than 300. Natsu and Lucy were shocked and could not imagine the scale of this event. After all, it is the guild of the entire Ishgar continent. Lucy sighed, full of expectations and uneasiness. Soon, Grey also returned to the hotel. Seeing everyone gathered together, Urza breathed a sigh of relief. She punched Grey without hesitation and knocked him down. What are you doing, Urza? Grey felt guilty and did not dare to resist. You still know how to come back, you almost lost the qualification for the preliminaries. Iluza pointed at the clock, and the time was exactly 23:59. Suddenly, a tremor tore through the tranquility of the Flower City, and the surrounding air seemed to be trembling, and felt an incredible power. In the sky, a huge magic circle slowly emerged, emitting a dazzling brilliance. Mysterious runes flashed in every corner of the magic circle, shocking people. As the magic circle rose, magic power surged in the air, forming ripples, as if an invisible tide was advancing, bringing a strong sense of oppression. People looked up, amazed at this wonder, their hearts filled with awe and excitement. This is... Urza couldn't help but speak. At this moment, a huge maze emerged in the magic circle, and the endless walls were like towering mountains, interlaced with each other, forming 300 passages, like endless galaxies. As they observed these wonders, a lot of information inexplicably appeared in their minds. So that's it, do you have to go through the maze to reach the venue to get to the main competition? Urza muttered to herself. This is the magic of the Empire. Grey also exclaimed. It's incredible. Natsu watched intently. It looks like the ancient book of Hibiki. Lucy's eyes flashed with surprise. Then, more than 300 roads emerged in the sky, each leading to the residence of a different guild. I'm burning. Natsu said excitedly. Let's go. Urza shouted, waving her magic sword, and led everyone to run towards the entrance of the maze. Chapter 144. Natsu rushed out first. Then came Urza, Grey, Lucy, and Wendy. Come on, let's be the first to advance to the finals. Don't be careless, Natsu. There are more than 300 guilds here. Almost all the powerful guilds in Ishgar are here, Urza said behind him. Yes, and Wendy was also ambushed just now. We have to be careful. Don't worry, Lucy is with me. I'm not afraid of anything, Natsu said excitedly. Ah, what are you talking about, idiot? Lucy was embarrassed. Natsu and others soon arrived at the center of the aerial maze. This place is thousands of meters high. Looking around, countless fragmented terrains are floating randomly. Rivers, mountains, and even cities, as well as broken houses, look very chaotic. Hey, this is too exaggerated, Grey exclaimed. This is the festival of the entire Ishgar, so it makes sense, Lucy said. The question is, how do we get to the venue through here? Urza touched her smooth chin. How about I just use the flames to gather my feet and rush over? Natsu looked at the direction and said. No, it's too far, and we will encounter a lot of wizard guilds on the way, which is very dangerous. Urza nodded, but still rejected the proposal. Then I will build the ice stairs in the first half, we will run over, and let Natsu grab the four of us and rush up at the end, Grey said with concentrated magic power. Okay. This is a good idea, Lucy agreed with bright eyes. But, will Natsu be very tired? Wendy was a little worried. Indeed, Natsu has always had poor fighting endurance, Urza nodded in deep belief. Natsu. Ice make. Ice stairs. Grey gathered his magic power, slapped the ground with both hands, and an ice staircase that continued to move forward was condensed. The direction of the venue is in the east, Urza shouted. Oh. Everyone moved forward smoothly, and the ice blue stairs were very eye-catching in the entire maze. The people watching the preliminaries through the magic crystal below were also surprised. Is that the magic of the ice modeling magician? Such strong magic power, such a fast modeling speed, one of the people exclaimed. SHH. This game is getting more and more exciting, Kaboo. But, if you really think it's that simple, the voice of a short host with a pumpkin on his head spread throughout Crocus. On the ice stairs, many wizards witnessed the 5 people moving forward without pressure. Wait, something's wrong, Urza suddenly stopped the people behind. What's wrong, Sister Urza? Wendy asked curiously. The magic power of this magic device is flowing, Grey added. It's going to spin. Everyone be careful. Don't fall down. Urza suddenly shouted. Then, the entire aerial maze emitted an amazing light, and the light flowed on this huge magic device. Natsu and others felt dizzy and a little unstable. No, it will go wrong if we continue like this. Urza shouted. Look at me, ice make. Time capsule. A huge ice ball appeared and wrapped the bodies of the 5 people. At this moment, the bodies of the 5 people were in the ice ball, tightly attached. Nice, Grey, Lucy took the initiative to praise. It's so cold. Wendy leaned on Natsu, who couldn't accept it. Hearing you say that, I'm also so cold. Lucy also suddenly reacted, immediately moved away from the inner layer of the ice ball, and hugged Natsu. It's okay. Urza said indifferently. At this moment, the corners of Natsu's mouth curled up a little. Get ready, we're going to move on. Natsu said, raising his hands high, and 2 big hands of huge flames grew out of the ice ball. The big flaming hands kept grabbing buildings and leverage points, flying quickly in the air. As expected of Natsu. Lucy shouted. Grey, next time, make a bigger ice ball. Urza's armor was tightly attached to the ice layer at this time, and her face was red with ice. Just said it was okay. Natsu turned his head and looked at her with some amusement. Hey! Urza glared at him. Don't fight in there, or I'll use ice magic to repair it again, Grey shouted. Please don't. Wendy and Lucy, who were leaning on Natsu's arms, shouted anxiously. They couldn't stand the coldness of Grey's ice magic. I said, just come over. Natsu freed one hand to grab Urza's body, crushed her ordinary armor casually, and let her lean on his arms. At this moment, Natsu, as the fire dragon slayer, had a burning body, bringing endless heat to everyone. Good warmth, Urza said subconsciously. What a bunch of cold-fearing guys. Grey leaned against the ice with some dissatisfaction. Wait, Natsu. You just grabbed Urza with your hands, how can we move? Lucy suddenly reacted. What are you worried about? I'm not the same person I was 7 years ago, Natsu said. What nonsense are you talking about? You haven't practiced for 7 years. Lucy complained. What I mean is that now my fire can also make simple automatic shapes. Although it is not as good as Grey, the flexibility is greatly improved, Natsu explained. So strong, Natsu brother. Wendy took the initiative to praise. So, many magicians in the aerial maze saw it. In the constantly rotating maze, countless magicians were eliminated because they accidentally fell below. A hockey ball with 2 big flaming hands is constantly rushing upwards to the venue. Chapter 145. In the rotating aerial maze, countless wizards fell with wailing. In this situation, an ice ball with a flaming hand kept flying forward, attracting attention from all parties along the way. What on earth is that? Which guild is it from? That's too exaggerated. Can they actually determine the direction? Inside the ice ball, Wendy closed her eyes and quietly sensed the airflow around her. The direction is correct, the air fluctuations are stable, it should be this direction, brother Natsu. Wendy said softly. Humph, worthy of being our Tianlong. Natsu grinned. The front should be the end. Gray looked forward with sharp eyes. At the end of their sight, an endless magic staircase appeared. At the end of the staircase, a huge passage was like a monster's mouth, waiting for them. Haha! We are going to be the first team to sprint to the finish line. Natsu shouted excitedly. The flaming hand exerted force suddenly, and the ice ball slid rapidly. They soon landed and stopped steadily in front of the passage. At the door, a small man wearing a pumpkin head suddenly appeared and greeted. Hey! You are the first to get here. Through this passage, you will be the first in the preliminaries. Kaboo! Nice! We are faster than Hal. Gray clenched his fists excitedly. Ha 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 ha, it's great that I didn't see him. It seems that we will win. Natsu also laughed loudly, with flames of joy burning in his eyes. But the pumpkin head shook his finger and showed a faint sneer. No, no. Emperor Ishgar did not participate in the preliminaries. They are the host team and will play other roles in the main competition. What? What? Everyone was shocked and their faces sank. Damn, so what's the point of this first in the preliminaries? Natsu's flame dimmed instantly, revealing a dissatisfied expression. At this moment, a powerful voice came from a distance. In this case, why not give this first to us? The voice rolled in like thunder, shaking the entire space. Everyone looked into the distance and saw a tall figure standing on the rock that was constantly moving forward. The rock pushed him and the people behind him forward like a giant beast. The man was wearing a black and white robe and holding a huge staff. He was as powerful as a mountain and had a majestic aura. Jura! Natsu and others' faces suddenly changed, and an invisible sense of oppression arose in their hearts. Jura's figure was like a giant. Wherever he went, the air seemed to tremble. His breath was as condensed as a mountain, as if it made the air around him heavier and suffocating. Hurry up! We can't let them get ahead. Urza said decisively, and then she and Lucy and Wendy quickly walked towards the passage. However, at this moment, Natsu suddenly said, Wait a minute, if we just leave like this, won't it show that we are afraid of them? His voice was low and firm, and his hands were already burning with flames. Hey? What are you talking about? The first place is already ours, don't make trouble. Lucy tapped Natsu's head lightly in annoyance. But Natsu suddenly grabbed Lucy's hand and looked at her deeply. Natsu, what are you doing? Lucy blushed instantly, her eyes dodged, and she didn't dare to look him in the eye. But Natsu said no more, slowly took out a golden ring from Lucy's chest and put it on the middle finger of his right hand. As he moved, a low thunder sounded in the air instantly. Watch it, I'm going to show you my new power. He raised his right hand, and the golden ring instantly burst into a dazzling light, and the lightning spread rapidly along his arm like a flowing electric current. Mode Thunder Dragon. Natsu's voice was as deep as thunder. As his voice fell, the power of thunder and fire intertwined, his whole body was wrapped in thunder and fire, and his momentum soared. The oppressive feeling in the air was actually competing with Jura's momentum, and the sound of thunder continued to echo in the space, shocking everyone present. Thunder! Thunder Dragon! Gray looked at Natsu in front of him in shock. At this moment, Natsu was bathed in flames and golden thunder, like a god of war intertwined with thunder and fire. There was a faint smile on the corners of Natsu's mouth, and his hands slowly opened. The majestic magic power spread out like a tide, and the waves with a sense of oppression swept all around in an instant. Jura's expression gradually became solemn. He raised his hand and pointed, and a huge horizontal rock quickly rose from the ground, blocking him and Natsu. Boom! Natsu's magic power swept through like a violent storm, cracks appeared on the surface of the rock instantly, as if it was about to collapse. Although the rock barely withstood the impact, this scene was enough to shock everyone present. What kind of magic is this? Leo behind Jura stared at Natsu, who was wrapped in lightning and fire, with a hint of disbelief in his voice. This magic power is completely different from 7 years ago. Jura was covered in golden magic power, resisting Natsu's breath. Natsu's hands were burning with lightning and fire, and he smiled easily and comfortably. Hey, uncle, let's fight. Although his voice was relaxed, the huge magic power gushing out of his body made the people of Snake Princess Scales feel depressed. Natsu's flames and lightning twisted the air like a violent storm, and his face was almost covered by flames and thunder. The only thing visible was the pair of red eyes full of excitement, like the fighting spirit of a beast before hunting. At this time, it seemed that other participating teams had also arrived around. They watched the confrontation from afar, but no one dared to intervene. Rock wall. Jura suddenly realized something and raised his hand to summon a huge rock wall to block himself. However, with a loud bang, Natsu's figure disappeared instantly. The next second, his fist, wrapped in thunder and flames, hit the rock wall directly. The flames and thunder intertwined, and the rock wall broke like paper in an instant, and the rebel scattered. So fast. Jura's eyes narrowed slightly. His nerves were instantly tense, and his eyes quickly scanned around, trying to catch Natsu's figure. Natsu turned into a golden lightning and shuttled around Jura at high speed. Only the sound of lightning tearing the air was left in the air. How can he be so fast? Gray looked at the lightning-like figure in front of him in disbelief and muttered. Urza, who was standing by, seemed to have seen the clues. She gently touched her smooth chin, fell into deep thought, and then said. This lightning is the power of Laxus, and with Natsu concentrating the fire on his feet, his speed has become extremely fast. What? Everyone was shocked when they heard Urza's analysis. At the same time, Jura summoned the rock wall again, trying to block Natsu's attack. But there was a hint of irritation in his expression. Natsu's speed and strength far exceeded expectations. Rock impact. 10 consecutive. Jura suddenly jumped high, and the rock under his feet instantly split into 10 huge rocks, blasting towards Natsu in the air with destructive power. Natsu's eyes flashed with excitement, and he waved his arms. This is interesting. Thunder Dragon's wing attack. Accompanied by a low roar, Natsu's arms turned into wings intertwined with thunder and fire, and slashed at the huge rocks fiercely. Boom! With a loud bang, the slash of fire and thunder collided with the rocks, exploding into smoke and gravel all over the sky. However, in the chaotic smoke, Jura still closed his eyes tightly, put his hands together, and his magic power surged like the sea. Rocks are dancing. Jura's eyes suddenly opened. The rocks under his feet changed again, turning into countless flexible giant rock fists, entrenched around him, as if forming an absolute defense, airtight. Above. Leo, who had been observing the situation, was suddenly shocked. His attack is above. Sure enough, Natsu's figure has appeared in the air, his fist wrapped in lightning and fire, and it smashed down from Jura's head like a destruction of the world, Thunder Dragon's collapse fist. Jura's giant rock fists tried their best to resist, but as the collision sounded, the giant rock fists broke one by one. The power of lightning and fire gradually dissipated in these impacts. The smoke dissipated, and the scene of the two people confronting each other in the sky appeared in front of everyone. The two of them looked at each other. Natsu smiled slightly, and golden lightning flashed. With a bang, his figure instantly turned into a golden light in the lightning, and returned to Lucy's side with the remaining thunder. On the other hand, Jura's figure fell rapidly under the powerful impact, and hit the ground heavily with a bang. The gravel flew, and the body trembled violently, causing the people of Snake Princess to exclaim. Natsu clapped his hands, and the golden lightning slowly faded. He turned around and showed a bright smile. Not bad, uncle, I know you haven't tried your best, but I had a great time. As for the victory or defeat, let's talk about it in the main game. After that, he grabbed Lucy's little hand lightly, turned around and left without looking back. Urza, Gray and Wendy were stunned for a moment, and then followed. However, facing this scene, no one among the onlookers dared to stop him. Jura stood on the cracked rock, staring at Natsu's departing back, his expression becoming particularly solemn. This magic power is already close to me, fairy tale, is so terrifying. Chapter 146. Natsu and the others advanced to the finals without any pressure, with a relaxed smile on their faces. However, in the next round, the 5 members of Snake Princess Hillen encountered a sneak attack. Just as they were about to retreat from the battlefield, the sky was suddenly shrouded by a strange magic. Memory shape, the gravity that overwhelms the earth. An elegant yet gloomy voice sounded from mid-air, with a rhythm like chanting. If it is chanted in a low voice, it is like whispering an ancient and moving poem. The owner of the voice, Rufus, chanted softly, like a poet whispering in the wind, but with a pressure that cannot be ignored. At this moment, Rufus's figure suddenly appeared above the head of Snake Princess Hillen. In the sky, a blood-red waning moon loomed, reflecting his unique temperament. He was wearing a bard's costume that seemed to have been passed down from the Middle Ages. The red robe fluttered in the wind, and a crimson cape was draped over his shoulders, with delicate silver threads embroidered on the edges, outlining intricate patterns, like a poem scroll embellished by moonlight in ancient legends. Rufus's figure was slender and straight, as if he was born with an elegant aristocratic temperament. In the sky, as Rufus whispered, a huge black magic circle slowly emerged above the scales of the Snake Princess. The dark magic power pressed down like a heavy dark cloud, making the entire space seem to lose its color in an instant. The edge of the magic circle was surrounded by complex runes, emitting a dark glow, like a spell in the moonlight, which was palpitating. Jura's rocks resisted the suffocating oppression, and the black gravity poured down like a mountain. The rocks collapsed, and every collision seemed to make the air tremble, but no matter how hard Jura tried, the pressure was still approaching. At this moment, his condition was no longer at its peak. The consumption of physical strength and magic power made him unable to deal with such a surprise attack. Damn it! Jura gritted his teeth, and cold sweat had already seeped out of his forehead. Leo's face was livid. He could clearly feel that this opponent should not be underestimated. He couldn't even release his magic power. The man standing in the air, Rufus, completely released his magic power and used all his strength to firmly trap the 5 people of Snake Princess Hill under gravity. This magic power just wants to trap us. Leo's voice was filled with faint reluctance and anger. At this time, Rufus, standing high in the sky, had an elegant posture, and the index and middle fingers of both hands gently pressed against his temples, as if he was summoning the magic of memory. The golden magic ripples spread from his brain, and the black magic circle became deeper and deeper. I remember your regret, your unwillingness, and the extremely destructive thunder flame fist. Rufus spoke calmly, as if he was narrating an insignificant matter, but the oppressive feeling made it almost impossible to breathe. The 5 members of Snake Princess Lin were struggling to hold on, and the air around them seemed to be distorted by the pressure of gravity. They watched the other 4 members of Swordbite Tiger walk past them. Invisibly, there seemed to be a hint of mockery. At this moment, Rog's cold voice came from the passage, "Let's go, Rufus." In an instant, a dark shadow giant hand condensed from Rog's magic power and directly swept Rufus, who had exhausted his magic power, away from the sky. The gravity magic disappeared, and Jura and others finally felt a little relieved, but their faces became more gloomy. Damn it, I was tricked. Leo was indignant, his eyes full of anger. Jura took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He did not show anger, but said calmly, "As long as we can advance to the finals, we can settle these accounts later." He slowly opened his eyes and looked at Leo with a sharp gaze. "Next, Leo, show your strength in the finals." Leo's face was heavy, but he nodded firmly, "I understand, Mr. Jura." At the same time, the team of Swordbite Tiger was already walking easily in the passage. Rufus' eyes were bright at this moment, with a tired smile on his face. It's still a bit difficult to trap Jura and Leo at the same time. He whispered to himself, as if he still felt unsatisfied with his performance just now. Ha ha ha. Too modest, Rufus. Olga laughed and patted Rufus on the shoulder, saying in a rough voice, "Your magic is so powerful." Sting on the side was so excited that he could hardly control himself. He hugged Rog's shoulders, his eyes shining with excitement. "Did you see it? Mr. Natsu? He is so powerful." Rog's voice was still cold, "I saw it, it is indeed very strong." Ha ha ha. "Although I didn't see your Mr. Gajeel, I bet he's not as strong as Mr. Natsu." Sting laughed even more wantonly. Rog just glanced at him lightly, boring. "It's so interesting. The great magic fighting performance representing the entire Ishgar is really exciting." Sting was so excited that he almost jumped up. "I wonder if I can meet the legendary Earth Dragon." "Sting, what can you do even if you see it?" Rog asked coldly. Sting smiled wildly, "Of course I will fight him." Ha ha ha. Oruga shook his head, looking a little worried. "Too arrogant, Sting. Earth Dragon is a great wizard who rules the entire continent. I heard that he can turn thousands of people into ashes with a wave of his hand." Sting was not afraid at all, and laughed even more arrogantly. "The more this is the case, the more interesting it is. I must see it myself." At this time, Yukino gently fiddled with her white and blue feathers, standing aside like an angel, with a worried look on her face. "Sting, your majesty is not an ordinary person. Have you seen him? Orga asked curiously. Of course not, Yukino shook her head and said softly. But my sister once took me to the Ishgar Imperial City, Fusler, and she said that His Majesty is also looking forward to this festival. Hearing this, Sting was stunned for a moment, and then laughed, ha ha ha. Even His Majesty is looking forward to it. That's even more exciting. Rufus smiled lightly, his eyes flickered, this matter. I remember it. The passage was full of laughter and joy. At this moment, the Swordbite Tigers were easily dealing with the next challenge in their unique style. At this time, the Swordbite Tigers did not enter the Reign of Terror in the plot because President Germain was afraid of the rule of the Empire. In the guild, only Miss Minerva acted without scruples all year round, while the others were good friends. Chapter 147. In the tavern, the lights flickered. The members of Fairy Tale sat together, the aroma of wine was overflowing, and laughter filled the air. On the table, the glasses clinked and cheers continued. Cheers! Natsu grabbed the glass in his hand, jumped on the table, and shouted loudly. Ha ha ha, first place in the preliminaries. Well done. Makao raised his glass with a smile. Hee, A level is greater than S level. Natsu looked proud and laughed. Smelly boy. Laxus sat aside, his eyes were calm, and there was a hint of helplessness in his tone. Wendy held the juice, blinked her eyes, and asked curiously, but it's so strange, shouldn't you guys, Laxus, arrive soon? Laxus frowned slightly, and after a moment, he said lightly, it was originally like this, but we were ambushed by a mysterious person. The lively sound of the tavern stopped abruptly, and everyone looked at him. Even the carefree Natsu didn't interrupt and listened attentively. A sneak attack. Gray raised his eyebrows, his eyes slightly sharp. Yes, that guy was wearing a black robe, and his face was completely invisible. He suddenly appeared and used some magic to teleport us to another place. Laxus's voice was low and a little puzzled. Only teleport? He didn't attack you directly. Natsu frowned and asked with a puzzled look. Well, he could have sent us directly out of the aerial maze, but he didn't do it. It feels like... Laxus paused, he just wanted to slow us down. It's really inexplicable. Gray crossed his hands in front of his chest, thinking. Makarov gently stroked his beard on the side, thought for a moment, and said in a deep voice. First Wendy was attacked by surprise, and then the space magic of this black-robed man. We have to be careful. As soon as the voice fell, the atmosphere in the tavern became solemn instantly. The smiles of Natsu, Gray, and others gradually disappeared, and their eyes became calm and alert. Makarov stood up slowly and announced solemnly, in this case, from today on, all members of Fairy Tale will live here. Be careful in everything. Oh! Everyone responded in unison, and the originally heavy atmosphere became lively again with a cheer. Wendy breathed a sigh of relief, patted her chest and whispered, it feels much more reassuring that everyone lives together. Kana raised her glass and replied drunkenly, yes. I want to see who dares to sneak attack us. Man! Men should live together. Elfman shouted with a smile. Can you be quiet? Gray sighed and glanced at Elfman. The tavern was still lively, and the sound of people drinking and chatting came one after another. Suddenly, a middle-aged man approached Makarov timidly, stretched out his trembling hand and gently patted his shoulder. Mr. Makarov. The middle-aged man spoke cautiously, with a bit of nervousness in his voice. Makarov squinted his eyes and turned to look at him. He was slightly drunk, but his eyes were still sharp. Who are you? He asked in a puzzled tone. I am the manager of this tavern. The manager wiped the sweat from his forehead and dodged his eyes. Oh, the manager. What's the matter? Makarov's tone was relaxed, and the smile was still on his face. Sorry, I want to ask, about the cost of tonight. The manager's voice became smaller and smaller, as if he was afraid of disturbing this group of powerful wizards. Cost. Makarov blinked, and it seemed that the effect of alcohol made him a little slow for half a beat. Then, he waved his hand, speaking casually as if discussing something trivial. Oh, just put it on the account of the Ishgar Empire. Hey! The store manager looked at him blankly, obviously not reacting to this sudden answer. What do you mean, the Ishgar Empire? The store manager's voice was uncertain and shocked. Makarov frowned in dissatisfaction, his eyes narrowed slightly, and his tone became a little impatient. Do you think I'm lying to you? That's not the case. The store manager waved his hand hurriedly, smiling, and the cold sweat on his forehead began to flow faster. Makarov laughed, took another sip of wine, and patted the store manager on the shoulder, as if joking but also stating the fact. The current rulers of Ishgar were all raised by me since childhood. Do you think I am short of money? Oh, is that so? The store manager smiled awkwardly, still looking confused, not knowing how to respond. Then, Makarov changed the subject and suddenly looked serious. That's right. I just simply don't want to just pay. Hey! The store manager's expression froze instantly, his eyes widened, and he couldn't understand the president's change of mind at all. The president is right. Natsu on the side was happy to hear this, and suddenly raised his glass and responded loudly, as if he had just heard some great news. Laxus shook his head, his mouth twitched slightly, but he didn't say anything, just took a sip of wine. There was laughter in the tavern, and the members of Fairy Tale were in high spirits, and they all laughed with Natsu. Ha ha ha, long live the president! What's the wine money? Just have fun. Store manager. Moonlit night. The door of the tavern was gently closed, and the moonlight fell on the streets of Kurikas like water. Laxus stood in front of the door, wearing a black cloak and looking particularly cold. He stood there, looking up at the bright moon hanging high in the night sky, and recalled the strange magic in his heart. That kind of magic, suddenly appeared, suddenly transferred, space magic, but why, it feels like it is mixed with the breath of dragon-killing magic. He murmured in a low voice, with a hint of coldness in his eyes. The golden lightning light jumped gently in his hands, like silent thunder, foreshadowing the anger in his heart. No matter who you are, dare to come again, I will not hesitate to destroy you. Laxus's voice was low and cold, his right fist clenched, and the lightning light became brighter. In the darkness in the distance, a black-robed figure watched him silently. Her breath was full of sadness and pain. Even if her face could not be seen clearly, it still made people feel extremely depressed. Why? She whispered in a low voice, her eyes full of disbelief. The slender figure gradually disappeared into the night, and a strand of golden hair emerged from the black robe, which was particularly dazzling in the moonlight. However, even so, Laxus was completely unaware of her existence. The dark magic on her body seemed to cover all detection in the darkness. Chapter 148. On the day of the main competition, there was a gentle breeze above the dome flavor, and the sun shone through the thin clouds, shining on this huge venue that could accommodate 10,000 people. The audience had already taken their seats, and colorful flags fluttered in the wind on the neat stands. The entire venue was like a boiling ocean, and cheers were endless. The vendors selling food and drinks walked through the aisles, shouting one after another, adding a bit of life to this tense competition. Grilled skewers. Cold drinks. Sweet juice. The vendors shouted loudly, occasionally attracting a few cheers from the audience. Outside the venue, thousands of imperial soldiers were fully armed, holding magic swords, neatly lined up, majestic and solemn. Through them, it seemed that the special status of this event could be felt. On the other side, in the waiting room for the players, Natsu and others had already arrived at the waiting area. Although the game had not officially started yet, they seemed relaxed and comfortable. Urza was wearing a purple fairy tale uniform, neat and tidy, and was leisurely tying her hair into a single ponytail, with a faint smile on her lips and humming an unknown tune. What a huge venue! Wendy, who was sitting next to her, looked up and looked around, holding Xiaolulu in her arms, with a hint of surprise in her eyes. Yes, it's a bit too exaggerated. Xiaolulu also responded in shock, her eyes full of disbelief. Makarov was sitting steadily not far away, with Aska sitting on his shoulder. He seemed to be surprised by the scale of the venue, frowning slightly, thinking. Strange, I remember that the dome flying bird was not so big before. Indeed. Urza stopped what she was doing, recalled it, and nodded. The last time I came, the scale was not so exaggerated. Laxus leaned against the wall, his hands folded. You mean, this place has been expanded? At this time, Myra, who was standing aside, interrupted with a proud smile. Hee, that's of course the work of Howl. Hey? Howl again? Levy sighed helplessly, he really does everything. Lucy sat in the corner, couldn't help rolling her eyes, and joined the ranks of complaining. Is Hal the Emperor of the Empire or a construction maniac? He even didn't spare the venue. Makarov muttered softly, as if talking to himself, really, no wonder. He went on to explain, this venue has indeed been expanded. The place that could only accommodate a few thousand people has now been expanded almost 10 times. There was a hint of admiration in his tone. And the ground has become unusually solid. I still remember the huge rock mountain we saw when we passed by the Flower City. It turned out to be for the expansion of this venue. Wendy suddenly realized and nodded, no wonder. It turns out that the mountain is for this. Laxus chuckled and whispered, Hal is really running around. Just as everyone was talking and laughing, suddenly, a deafening shout came from a distance. Oh! It seems to be starting. Urza stood up, with a glimmer of anticipation in her eyes. The entrance ceremony is about to begin, and we should go there too. Makarov stood up, brushed off the dust on his clothes, and looked outside the venue. At the same time, the audience in the venue stood up one after another, cheering one after another. The whole venue seemed to be drowned by the heat wave, and the huge sound was deafening. Natsu looked curiously out of the contestant channel, wanting to see what was going on. What happened? Lucy quickly pulled him back and said unhappily, the 8th place team is entering. Don't run around. Now, let me warmly welcome the 8th place in the preliminaries. It represents the synonym of wildness, and people call it the Hellhound Corps. The Magister Guild, 4 hounds. Wild. 4. 7th place. The noise of the crowd suddenly subsided a little, and everyone's eyes were focused on the team that was about to enter. Let us welcome the most intelligent and elegant wizard guild in Fiori. They have superb fighting skills and beauty, Mermaid Heel. The whole audience burst into warm applause and cheers. All the tall and cold female wizards walked out of the field. They walked lightly, but with unparalleled deterrence. The leading female wizard was the most outstanding. She looked both elegant and powerful, and people couldn't take their eyes off her. Kagura, will the Earth Dragon really come? 6th place. A guild that perfectly combines gorgeousness and handsomeness, representing the speed and power of the blue sky. Let us welcome Blue Pegasus. Blue light. The light swept through the venue like a gust of wind. The members of the Blue Pegasus team wore gorgeous clothes, like knights on the battlefield, and entered the venue with confidence and pride. Yeah, men. Nice perfume. The 5th place entered. There was a slight chill in the air. Lucy couldn't help but stick to Natsu's body. What's wrong, Lucy? Natsu asked curiously. The 5th place, the synonym of darkness and weirdness, the darkness of the past, the light of today. Let's cheer for the change. Great Raven Tail. The team walked out of the shadow, exuding a dangerous and mysterious atmosphere. The members of the Great Raven Tail were cold and ruthless, wearing black cloaks, as if they could swallow the light. As soon as they appeared, the audience's voices lowered a few points. The leader, the masked man in golden armor, Makarov, I want to take back everything I have. Let's welcome the 3rd place with the warmest applause. They represent the symbol of perseverance and eternal power. This is Snake Princess's scales. The huge snake-shaped pattern rotates in the air with a shocking power. The wizards of Snake Princess's scales walk firmly, with sharp light flashing in their eyes. They exist like a snake tightly wrapped around its prey, waiting for the best time to kill it with one blow. Leo, I will take revenge, Sword Bite Tiger. The 2nd place enters. The atmosphere instantly reached a small climax, and the audience began to exclaim in low voices. 2nd place. The first guild that ruled the entire Fiori for 7 years, they have unparalleled strength and glory. Sword Bite Tiger. The white tiger shadow is set off in the center of the venue, accompanied by deafening cheers. The members of Saberbite Tiger walked steadily, and every step seemed to be on the glory. They were once unshakable kings, and each of them carried a heavy sense of responsibility and endless ambition. Sting, come on, Fairy Tale. Next, let me welcome this legendary guild with a special entrance. The strongest in the past. Fairy Tale, which occupies both the 1st and 4th places, is here. The atmosphere at this moment almost exploded, and the audience was boiling. 4th place, the strongest guild in Fiori. All of them are S-level, carrying countless legendary fairies, Fairy Tale's team. 1st place. Let us welcome the champion of the preliminary round. The strongest team with a fire dragon, led by the legendary Emperor's brother, the man whose name resounded throughout Fiori, Fairy Tale A Team. Natsu. As Natsu's name was called out, the whole venue boiled like a flame. Natsu stood in front of the team, with a confident smile on his face, his fists burning with blazing fire. Urza, Gray, Lucy and Wendy followed closely behind, their aura swept the whole venue like a storm, and no one could stop them. Oh! It's worthy of our fairy tale. Makarov stood in the spectator's seat, surrounded by members of Fairy Tale, who shouted, and the venue seemed to have reached a climax in an instant. Thousands of Imperial soldiers lined up solemnly around the center of the venue. They wore exquisite magic armor, held magic swords flashing with cold light in their hands, and complex runes were engraved on the armor plates, revealing an awe-inspiring mysterious power. These soldiers had expressionless faces, their postures were like steel sculptures, and their eyes were calm and steady. The soldiers were divided into multiple queues, densely arranged, like a steel torrent, guarding every corner of the venue. With the soldiers' uniform footsteps, the low sound of war drums came faintly in the air. The ritual music resounded across the land, solemn and dignified. The sounds of those instruments seemed to be war songs from ancient times, setting the stage for the upcoming battle, full of power and awe. Everything was in a harmonious and lively atmosphere. The sky of the entire venue suddenly darkened, as if a powerful force had descended from the sky and enveloped everyone. The venue instantly fell into a dead silence. Whether it was the noisy audience or the eager contestants, they couldn't help but look up at the sky at this moment, as if attracted by an irresistible force. "What's going on?" someone exclaimed in a low voice, breaking the brief silence. "The sky has changed." As the voice fell, the sky gradually darkened, and the originally bright sunshine was obscured by heavy clouds, as if the earth was about to fall into endless darkness. The wind suddenly stopped, and a palpitating sense of oppression filled the air, as if even breathing became heavy. At this moment, the ritual music sounded again, but this time the music was different from the previous one. The sound of the ancient melody was replaced by a solemn, and sacrificial tone. The noise of the audience was instantly suppressed by the ancient melody, and everyone looked up unconsciously, with fear and awe in their eyes. Buzz! 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 As the sound approached, the big screen in the venue suddenly lit up, and a magnificent name appeared in front of everyone. Ishgar Empire. Next. Let us welcome the representative team of the Ishgar Empire. The commentator's voice trembled slightly with excitement, as if he had witnessed something shocking. They are the present of legends. The first empire in history to unify the entire continent. This team has gathered countless top powerhouses, and each of their names is enough to make the entire magic world tremble. As soon as the voice fell, a dazzling blue light fell from the sky. The first to step out of the shadow was Jalal. His figure looked particularly majestic under the spotlight formed by the starry sky. The blue and white magic armor glowed with sacred light like a blazing flame. His eyes were like the deep starry sky, cold and solemn, as if he could see through everything, like a star god awakened from a myth. Jalal raised his hands slightly, and the air seemed to stop flowing for him, and even the fluttering flags seemed to freeze instantly, and time stopped at this moment. Starfall God General Jalal, the right hand of Emperor Ishgar, the sharpest sword of the Ishgar Empire. The commentator's voice became excited. He once destroyed countless black magic cultists with his own strength. In his eyes, there is no difference between countries and cities, the only difference is the scale of the meteorite falling. Just before the commentator finished speaking, a dazzling bright light suddenly broke out in the sky. Boom! Above the sky, countless stars seemed to be summoned, emitting strong flashes and rotations, as if the world was responding to an invisible force, and even the air seemed to be stagnant at this moment. Then, a blazing golden beam tore through the sky, like a divine punishment, falling from the sky and hitting the earth heavily. Bang! A powerful magic power fell with the beam of light, shaking the entire venue, and the earth groaned. The audience felt as if their hearts were being grabbed and they couldn't breathe. The golden magic power raged like a hurricane, stirring up the surrounding airflow. In the center of the golden light, a vague figure gradually appeared. He was like a god descending to the earth, bathing in the golden light, and the oppressive feeling exuded by the figure was suffocating. He was Emperor Ishgar, Hal. Hal's whole body was shrouded in golden light, as if he was the embodiment of glory. He didn't make any extra movements, but his indifferent eyes were like a sharp blade, coldly sweeping across the entire venue. Just one look seemed to nail everyone to the spot, and the invisible pressure surged in all directions like a tide, making it difficult for everyone to breathe. The world seemed to bow down and surrender at his feet. The commentator couldn't help but take a breath, and his voice was mixed with uneasiness and trembling. Ishgar Emperor, Hal, come to the stadium in person. As soon as he finished speaking, the air around Hal trembled, as if it was distorted by some invisible force, and even the light trembled. A team of Imperial magic guards wearing black magic armor appeared and floated in the air. These black armored warriors had expressionless faces, cold eyes, and uniform steps, like a legion of death crawling out of the depths of hell. With every step, the void made a low trembling sound, as if even the air was bearing this invisible pressure. Wherever the magic guards passed, the air became thinner and thinner, and even the ground under their feet seemed to be bearing the unbearable pressure and trembled faintly. We greet the Emperor Ishgar. May the Emperor be at peace. The commentator's voice trembled, with boundless awe and fear. Obviously, he had never expected that Hal would come to the venue in person. In the audience, the tens of thousands of people who were originally noisy suddenly fell silent. Tens of thousands of spectators stood up in unison, put one hand on their chests, bowed their heads and saluted. Their movements were extremely neat, as if they were not facing ordinary people at the moment, but gods. This is respect for the Emperor who rules the entire Ishgar continent, and this is awe for the strongest wizard in Ishgar. In this breathtaking and magnificent scene, powerful contestants such as Jura, Leo, Yiyat, Kagura, Sting, and Rogue had complicated faces and fearful eyes. They did not dare to look Hal in the eye, and knelt on one knee. They felt their own insignificance in the face of powerful forces, like ants. Only the people of Fairy Tale still stood firmly, with a cheerful expression. Natsu grinned, revealing a smile full of fighting spirit, his eyes burning with excitement and anticipation. Haha! Honey! Finally here! Chapter 149. Hal's whole body was bathed in golden light, and the dazzling brilliance made it impossible to see his face clearly. Only his cold eyes penetrated everything, indifferent and majestic. His voice echoed over the venue like thunder, everyone. No need to be polite, I'm just here to participate in the festival. This sentence spread like ripples, and the magic contained in the voice vibrated in the air, as if it was an irresistible order. Everyone involuntarily restored their original posture, as if they were instantly adjusted back to a few minutes ago by an invisible force. We thank the Emperor. Tens of thousands of people responded in unison, deafening. Although they tried to stay calm, everyone still dared not take their eyes off Hal. Hal ignored these etiquettes and turned his eyes gently to Natsu and other people in the guild. Natsu, I look forward to your performance. Ha ha ha. I'm burning. Natsu's eyes were full of fighting spirit, his fists clenched suddenly, and his whole body was instantly wild. Hal smiled slightly, and then his body turned into golden light, and instantly disappeared in front of everyone, as if he had never existed. In the center of the venue, only the solemn figures of Jalal and Altair, who appeared at some point, and other Imperial magic guards were left. Altair looked around, sighed softly, and then calmly ordered, everyone retreat, be alert in the sky. Yes. The Imperial magic guards responded in unison, and the magic array under their feet flashed, and then turned into black beams and disappeared in the air. Lucy broke the solemn atmosphere, and she whispered awkwardly, are we just standing here? Leo on the side didn't care about the atmosphere around him at all. His eyes were fixed on Altair, and his fair face unconsciously showed a hint of shame. Muttering to himself, Ulu. Altia seemed to sense his emotions, took the initiative to step forward, smiled and stretched out her hand. Leo, nice to meet you, I am Ulu's daughter, Aludia. Ah. Leo was distracted for a moment, and held her hand blankly. At that moment, his throat was a little choked, and his eyes were slightly red. Nice to meet you, Aludia. The scene fell into a brief silence for a while, and everyone seemed to be immersed in the pressure and the aftermath of Hal's departure. At this moment, a childish voice suddenly broke the silence, hello? Hello? Meow. Everyone looked back in astonishment, only to see a purple-black cat slowly climbed up to the commentator's seat, picked up the microphone and shouted to the audience. Meow. No, hello, I'm Cat Brother, I'm Cat Brother. Now, the grand magic fighting competition begins. Cat. A surprised exclamation suddenly rang out in the venue. Cat Bro immediately exploded, and angrily yelled into the microphone, what's wrong with the cat? The deafening sound echoed throughout the venue, making people's eardrums hurt. The nut-faced commentator was sweating profusely, and hurriedly advised, that Minister Cat, please keep your voice down, the audience can't stand it. Cat Bro rolled his eyes, call me Cat Bro. Thank you. Okay, Cat Bro, please, keep your voice down, okay. The commentator tried his best to stay calm. Oh. Cat Bro reluctantly put away his momentum, and his voice became a little smaller. In the audience, Habi, Xiaolulu and Lily stared at Cat Bro in the commentary booth in amazement, with confusion on their faces. That's Exeter. Xiaolulu widened her eyes and said in disbelief. Why would a cat become a commentator? She couldn't help but complain. Habi touched his head, I can't understand it either. That's the famous cat minister on the continent. Haven't you heard of him? Jet came over with a serious face and explained. Cat minister. The three cats were shocked again. Yes, the cat minister is a close friend of Emperor Ishgar. It is rumored that the cat minister is behind every step of the emperor's rule. Libby flipped through the book in her hand while popularizing science. Troy also quickly added, that's right. He not only promoted economic exchanges between various places, but also an important promoter of cultural exchanges. He is definitely a legendary official. Habi and Lily looked at each other, their faces full of surprise. Lily stared at the cat brother who was shouting in the commentary booth, and the black cat's face was full of doubt. This guy, is he really that great? Maybe. Habi replied helplessly. Cat brother in the commentary booth was looking at the nut-faced commentator with an unhappy face. What are you doing? You keep interrupting me. Well, the commentator needs to control the volume. The commentator said cautiously. Am I talking loudly? Cat brother yelled unconvinced. No. Just then, a gentle hand suddenly fell on Cat brother's head. Cat brother's anger disappeared instantly. He looked up in surprise, only to see Mavis standing in front of him with a smile, gently pinching his ear. Hal tells you, don't make trouble. Cat brother froze instantly, and the words in his mouth were forcibly held back. Chapter 150. In the audience, Makarov's eyes widened, staring at the petite figure that appeared on the stage in shock. Is that the first generation? Macayo on the side also looked helpless, and whispered, why is the first generation here? Makarov calmed down a little and sighed, forget it, it doesn't matter, only the members of our fairy tale can see her. Macayo nodded, that's right, but, wait, why can the cat see it too? Maybe, a coincidence. Makarov's tone was a little uncertain. At this time, the cat brother on the stage seemed to be floating on the chair, as if it was light and unaffected by gravity. It looked like it was in a complicated mood, and the little expression on the cat's face that was both enjoyable and angry was extremely funny. Because Mavis was holding it in her arms, gently kneading its little ears. This cat really enjoys. Macayo's mouth twitched. Okay, let me announce it, the first day of the Ishgar Grand Demon Show, the first match. Brother Cat seemed to suddenly cheer up, stood up straight, and shouted loudly. Team competition, start. The crowd in the audience was instantly in an uproar. What is starting? Where are the rules? Brother Cat waved his paw and said disapprovingly. Right, the rules, you just watch it. You will understand it after watching it. It added lazily, not paying any attention to the commotion in the audience. Hey, what kind of operation is this? Everyone complained. At this moment, a huge score table appeared on the magic screen. Grand Magic Fighting Team Competition Points Rules. First place, 10 points. Second place, 8 points. Third place, 6 points. Fourth place, 4 points. Fifth place, 3 points. Sixth place, 2 points. Seventh place, 1 point. Eighth place, 0 points. Ninth place, -1 point. Individual competition points rules. Win, 10 points. Lose, 0 points. Draw, 5 points each. Okay. Fools. Next is the team competition. Each team sends one person to stand in their respective positions, and the rest of the players go back. Brother Cat shouted without hesitation, and his ears kept changing shape in front of the people on the stage, sometimes pointed, sometimes round. Lucy looked at the stage helplessly. The first generation actually held it. Gajeel touched his chin and said thoughtfully, by the way, it seems that no one except us can see the first generation. So for others, the cat is simply too abstract. Grey had a face full of complaints. Sometimes the face is distorted, sometimes the ears are deformed. Laxus looked at the cat brother on the stage speechlessly. So cute! Myra suddenly exclaimed. Hey! Seriously? Grey looked at her helplessly. Just then, Grey noticed that Altair standing next to Jalal came out with a smile. This game, let me do it. Altair held the silver-white crystal, her tone full of confidence. Ah, leave it to you. Jalal's eyes did not leave Urza. After hearing it, he nodded slightly and left. Wow! It's actually Ice Rose Goddess Altair who appeared. The nut-faced commentator shouted excitedly as if he had been injected with chicken blood. The cat brother on the side rolled his eyes and looked at it unhappily. In that case, let me take on the challenge. Grey walked forward with a smile, looking straight at Altair. Mr. Jura, let me do it, Leo said after a moment of silence, looking at Altair and Grey in front of him. Ah, please, Jura patted Leo on the shoulder. At the same time, other contestants also stood on the stage. Fairy Tale's team, Juvia. Blue Pegasus, Evie. Raven's Tail, Narabudinku. Swordbite Tiger, Rufus. Mermaid Heel, Bess. Four Hounds, Yego. The 9 people stood in their respective positions, and for a moment, the audience's eyes were all focused on them. The air in the center of the arena seemed to solidify, and the atmosphere gradually rose with an invisible sense of oppression, and everyone held their breath. Inside the dome venue, the audience's whispered discussions and breathing sounds intertwined, and a tense atmosphere began to spread. At this moment, hundreds of imperial wizards in white robes slowly emerged from the ground around the venue. Their figures floated up silently like phantoms, as if summoned from the depths of the earth. Accompanied by low chanting, the wizards shouted in unison. Day turns to night, illusion solidifies. Invisible power, obey my call. Turn into steel and bricks, and restore the glory of the past. Virtual magic, summon. City Magnolia. With this order, a dazzling light suddenly lit up in the center of the entire venue, as if connecting the sky and the earth together. A huge and complex magic circle unfolded from the center of the venue, emitting golden light, and runes flickered and flowed like water, covering the entire ground. The light of the magic circle spread rapidly on the surface, and a low hum began to sound in the surrounding air. The light intertwined into a net, like the skeleton of a building, revealing the outline of the city bit by bit in front of everyone. The ground began to shake, and the outlines of bricks, roads, and houses emerged at an incredible speed, gradually outlining a prosperous city. Magnolia. In less than 10 seconds, a huge and beautiful city appeared in front of everyone. The towering clock tower, the busy streets, the vast square, everything seemed to be real, but with illusory light and shadow. At this time, Brother Cat on the stage excitedly took the microphone, and his voice resounded throughout the venue through the amplification magic device. Here we go. Battle Royale. Magnolia Survival War. This is a game where the longer you live, the higher your ranking. Come on, destroy it. Show your strength. The audience instantly erupted in deafening cheers, and the atmosphere reached its climax. Tens of thousands of spectators stood up excitedly, waving their flags, and shouts resounded through the sky. The contestants had different expressions, some showed excited smiles, and some looked serious. Everyone understood that this would be a fierce confrontation without rules, only survival. The city has appeared before them, and it is still unknown who can survive in this virtual Magnolia.